Oh, really? We are going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Got a big crowd here tonight. This is the Thursday, March 7th, 2024 Ipswich School Committee meeting. We will call to order at 7:03. Jimmy, would you please read the district mission statement for us, please?
Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice and demonstrating competency.
Thank you. For announcements tonight, the next regularly scheduled school committee meeting will be held on Thursday, March 21st at 7 p.m. The school committee will present the FY25 budget to the Finance Committee on Thursday, March 12th at 7:30 p.m. in Meeting Room A at Town Hall. The Policy Subcommittee meeting will meet on Wednesday, March 13th at 5 p.m. in the Middle School High School Guidance Conference Room. The School Facilities Working Group will meet remotely on Tuesday, March 19th at 5 p.m. And the Communications Subcommittee will meet remotely on Tuesday, March 19th at 5:45 p.m. Finally, the bean counting will be held on Saturday, April 6th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in Meeting Room A at Town Hall. Are there any other announcements tonight?
Nope.
All right. Any special acknowledgements?
None this evening.
All right. So I'm going to move on to remarks from the chair. So I have a bit of an announcement about our upcoming negotiations with our teachers union. So on January 30th, we received communication from the Ipswich Educators Association regarding a demand to bargain successor contracts for 3 of our 6 bargaining units, including the teachers, the paraeducators, and the education support professionals. Those contracts expire between July 31st and August 31st of this year. Included in their demand to bargain letter was a request to begin after February break, as well as their preference to bargain in open session. The school committee took the IEA requests under advisement, and after careful deliberation and discussion, we did not agree to engage in open session bargaining. Historically, contract negotiations in Ipswich, as well as many other communities around the Commonwealth, are conducted in executive session for a variety of reasons. The school committee is committed to a collaborative process and will do our best to provide the community with regular updates as we make our way through this process. The school committee bargaining subcommittee looks forward to getting the process started with our first meeting and ultimately agreeing upon a fair and equitable and sustainable contract for all of our bargaining units as efficiently as possible. And that's it for my remarks tonight. So next up is public comments. Given that we have so many community members here tonight, I'm just going to read something that is at the bottom of our agendas about public comment, just so that we're all clear on our guidelines for public comment. So public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. While the committee and/or administrators will not typically respond during public comment, the chair, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to respond if it seems expeditious. Furthermore, if the chair believes that an issue falls outside of the school committee's purview, he or she may request that the citizen direct it to the appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes overall. So with all that said, do we have any public comments tonight? We usually have a microphone set up, so I guess if you don't mind coming to the table and having a seat. If you could just... Yeah, we can move it.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just wanted to thank the school committee. Oh, I am Becky Slauson. I'm the president of the Ipswich Educators Association. So I just wanted to start by thanking the school committee for considering our request for public open bargaining. We're of course disappointed in your decision. And so I just wanted to ensure that all of you in the community understand that we are committed to transparency as the teachers that work with your children. It is our full intention to continue along that path. So you can expect to see all of the documents that we present to the school committee in bargaining will be made public. We'll be sharing everything that we share at the bargaining sessions with the public because we're committed to transparency. And it's disappointing that the school committee is not.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments tonight? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the high school student representative report from Jimmy.
All right. Tonight, my report is pretty brief, but I just wanted to touch upon some of the topics that were mentioned last Friday on our advisory council meeting. A bulk of our conversation was talking about the Spring Spirit event that we've been talking about, I feel like all year now, about doing something around the same time that the outdoor space behind the cafeteria opens up that can kind of raise some spirits towards the end of the year with all the grades all at once. Our idea was to have food trucks, get something like go big or go home for the end of the year, and hopefully we can make it happen. Now it's getting really last minute, but we started to reach out to the class officers, ask for their help, and figure out how we can actually make this happen. So hopefully some steps will be moving forward shortly. We also talked about the high school parking lot, how it's really overcrowded right now, but there's nothing we can really do about that. It'll decrease once Bridge students go out on Bridge at the beginning of April. We also talked about the steps and potentially applications for students to then become a member of the Payne Grant Committee, and how we can get that moving before that needs to happen because it's coming up quickly. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we talked about long-term subs in AP courses and how that can not always go over well, but other than that, I think that's the big points that we talked about.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments for Jimmy? All right, thank you. All right, so we will move on to our IEA snapshot. So for folks in the room, this is a 5-minute presentation from various teachers in our district from all different schools that give us sort of a little bit of a snapshot of what's going on in the classrooms and lessons they're learning. Oh, yes, so sorry. So I got,
Sorry.
I think you do for the people at home on ICANN. The microphones aren't for us, it's for the recording. So we'll bring, oh,
There's one
thank
behind her.
you.
No, this is great.
Don't be sorry, you're being very helpful.
Well done,
deliberating.
well done.
It was unplug it and plug it back in.
Realize you're gonna have to do that in 5 minutes. Don't tear it all up. You're gonna have to
I'll keep
redo it in
talking.
a couple
So
of minutes.
yeah, so we have these 5-minute snapshots every other meeting. So it's once a month and it's really been a nice opportunity. We've been doing it for maybe a year. So it's a really nice opportunity for the school committee to sort of hear what's going on in the classroom at the beginning of our meetings. And we find it a very sort of short and uplifting part of our meetings. So welcome.
My name is Debbie McShane, and I was asked to come here and give you guys an overview of the senior journalism course. I've been working here since 2009, and I've had the pleasure of having many students throughout the years, and great students. I mostly teach juniors and seniors. The senior English course is journalism. When I was thinking about what to present, if I should focus on one thing or many things, I figured I'd ask my students. And they said, give me an overview of what we do for the fall semester. So I promised my best. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we've done so far. So course description that the students see when they sign up for journalism. Senior English is interesting because they actually get to pick what they want to take. So journalism is one of the options. Our main goal is to have students assume operational and editorial responsibilities of type of transcript. That's our high school newspaper. It's an online paper. You can find it if you Google tigertranscript.com, or it's linked onto the homepage for the high school. We examine different genres of writing, especially the narrative essay, which falls into the college essay, and I'll talk more about that in a second. We explore a variety of nonfiction texts. This is journalism. that makes sense. And I'm a firm believer that the more you read, the better you write. There's a focus on grammar mechanics, purely for career and college readiness, just to try to eradicate some of the egregious mistakes I see in their writings, like run-ons or agreement. That's what we do throughout the year. And there's an emphasis on deadline management, self-management, collaboration, and communication. The essential question for the entire course is basically what makes a good story. And that's in regards to what are the kids writing about, what we're reading in the college essay. So our year starts with a unit on the narrative essay. And I always tell kids, we look at the Common App prompts. It really doesn't matter if you think you have a good story to tell, or maybe you think you don't, because option 7, and there's always an option like this, is basically pick a topic of your choice. Right? So everyone has a story. Let's figure out how to tell it. I did link stuff here, some of the notes that I give them about narrative essay and like what to focus on. It's usually an anecdote, a specific story. We focus on organization, and it needs to have a point, but it's not a traditional thesis. The point usually comes towards the end. I tell them, don't be afraid to use dialogue and strong verbs. We also, we read professional narrative essays, we read college essays from former students, we brainstorm different topics, and then we finally get to our final product, which they can use for their college essay. The main goal is basically to make you fair. Because if the reader's on your side, they root for you. So that's their main goal throughout the entire thing. I asked students today, I said, could I share some college essays with the school committee? They usually write about really personal things. It's my favorite essay to read. I think I said that. I have Jimmy this year, so he can tell you. I said I would take their names off the essays because, again, it's really personal. A bunch of kids shockingly were like, yes, use mine, use mine. I randomly picked 2. So at the end of the presentation, I'll cast them out if you want to read it at your own time. I did remove it and identifying information. Like I said, we also run the Tiger transcript. And again, we talk about how to brainstorm a story and what makes a good story, especially for our high school newspaper, because we're not CNN or Fox News. We're not the New York Times. We can't go live every minute. So we talk about what makes a good story and then how to interview. Listen is important. We set deadlines. At the beginning of the year, I set the deadlines, and I want them to meet it. But as Jimmy will tell you, as the year progresses, I tend to hand over the editorial reins to the students, and Jimmy was one of my editors for the last edition. And then the kids set their own deadlines, and they keep each other accountable, and they approve topics, and they edit. And it's really impressive because at the end of the day, it's a paper that's like run by the students, and the stories are thought of by the students. The interviews are done by the students. Some recent titles: The Whittier Worriment, How does Social Media Affect Learning, The Stress of Midterms, To Be or Not to Be, and of course, it's Taylor Swift Working Football. I did link the Tiger transcript here just in case you haven't seen it. So this is the school newspaper. Our goal is to go live every month, once a month. So, as I said earlier, we also do a lot of reading. So I like to emphasize nonfiction. It's important. Nonfiction provides a lot of benefits, but most especially it provides the opportunity to engage, question, and challenge prior knowledge. We started the year by reading Truman Capote's Equal Life. Truman Capote was a brilliant writer. Whatever about his personal life, he had some issues, but he was a great writer. And we have some really interesting discussions about justice and what is fair, even connections to unity or English. When we talk about the American dream, like, are we in control of our own destiny or are we not? Does evil exist? And what about capital punishment? Do they agree or do they disagree? If you're not familiar with the book, it's based on the murder of the Clutter families in Kansas in 1959. And they really are the all-American family. In the middle of like one November night, these 2 gentlemen, Harry Smith and Dick Hitchcock, come in and murder them basically in their own beds. And they kind of represent the other side of America that we don't always see or like to talk about. But Capote really shows that to some extent, especially one of them, is like a victim of society too. And there's some really interesting conversations that come from this text. And we're reading a great writer. I was inspired by some training that we have here from the Boston Debate League, and I actually used it for our midterm. So debating is important, you know, it builds confidence as a speaker, it helps students express ideas more eloquently and confidently, it supports rigorous and critical thinking, and it fosters mental and emotional maturity. You know, we prepared for the midterm, they had a lot of tips on how to debate, like keeping calm and listening, and offering a rebuttal. We did a practice mini debate where we, each class had a different topic. One class talked about our private, public, or tech schools better. Another class debated, should public schools require students to participate in athletics? And I had my third class debate, should students be allowed to grade their teachers? That was an interesting conversation. Shockingly, they said no, most of them. Yeah, that was actually, they didn't know if they'd be mature enough, but that was good. And it kind of ended with our midterm, which was the global ed debate. Kind of link this to my Google Classroom page. That's our home base for everything. One thing to note about this assignment is that kids couldn't pick their argument. So they were randomly put into a different group. Claim A was, should Kelly Smith be found not guilty? Claim B was, should Dick Hitchcock be found not guilty? Claim C is they should both be sentenced to life in prison. And claim D was they should both be sentenced to death. And they have to use evidence from the text and evidence from outside of the text to support your arguments. I also will hand out, in addition to the college essays, a closing statement from Natalie Wing. So I will give her credit because that was excellent. It was really well done. She argued that Dick Hitchcock and Perry Smith should be sentenced to death. The interesting thing is she's fundamentally opposed to the death penalty, but it was really well done. So I'll show you an example of that at the end as well. We just ended a unit on the First Amendment. So obviously the First Amendment covers religion and speech, the right to assemble and petition, but also freedom of the press, with really an emphasis on student rights. So we look at numerous cases. Here are a few of the cases that we look at. Tinker tends to give students more rights from schools, right? It's this case of the Black Armbands during the Vietnam War. And the Supreme Court said, like, listen, you don't lose all your rights when you walk through these doors. But then other cases, like Hazelwood and Frederick, those cases seem to limit student rights. Hazelwood was with the school newspaper, and it gave teachers and admin the ability to censor student newspapers. So we talk about the gray area in between. Again, really great conversation. And we talk about recent cases too. Randy Levy was a high school cheerleader, and she kind of on her own time on social media accounts published some not nice things about her coach and was punished. So it brings in some discussion about what can happen to you with your own social media account. They're private. Are the consequences? And the Michelle Carter case. Can speech actually be homicide? So that was this case of the student not that long ago who was actually found guilty of coercing her friend, boyfriend, whatever you want to say, into suicide. But that was a really interesting debate too. And I think most students thought she was guilty. I couldn't leave my other classes out. They want to be involved too. This is A block. There's more fun to come. It's March. We have a few more months. We're going to do more Tiger transcripts. We have more work with grammar. We're going to do more fiction, nonfiction. I'm sorry. I give them the option. I think most classes want to read Columbine. I have a lot of great texts in their room, so that might be next. We usually end the year with some work on ethics in journalism, and that can tie in some stuff from earlier too. And if we have time, we get to podcasting. And I couldn't leave out G Block. That's it. They're very upset. So,
My goodness.
hopefully it wasn't too hard.
It's okay. No, it's interesting.
Any questions? Or
I'm kind of blown away. I want to go back to high school. I was an English major, so I love this stuff. It's great. It's really impressive. Thank you.
about this?
There are so many life skills that come up from a class like this. Being open-minded, being able to speak in public, which,
It's not easy.
comes in handy. Yeah, no. And learning how to research and how to research facts, sort of taking a step back from your feelings, although those are important, and just looking at the facts. I think that's excellent. It's a huge takeaway from that.
I mean, some kids were very uncomfortable having to debate in public, but I like to tell them it's a safe environment and it's good practice here.
Right, right.
And if anyone wants me to share the presentation, if you want to check out the links in more detail, I'm happy to do that too. Just let me know.
I would love it. And then if anyone, I'm happy to circulate it. If anyone else wants it, just let me know. Thank you. Yeah, and 3 of us have seniors, so I think we can appreciate the college essay adventure.
Do any of these students end up writing for the local paper?
No, I mean, no. No, some students have gone on to write for their college newspapers, and sometimes kids will send me back articles. I know we have a senior right now, Ella, who writes for the local newspaper, but she's taking AP. Every now and then, we have a couple kids who like double up with English. You know, some kids who really love humanities. I think I have one student right now who's taking journalism and creative writing, but that doesn't often happen because their schedules are so fixed.
Other questions? Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Wonderful.
I appreciate it.
I know.
I give it a minute while we let some guests leave and reorganize our room orientation for our next couple of agenda items. And shut the doors. Shut the door. There's a lot of. All right, we are back. All right, so moving on to our Whittier Tech School Committee representative interviews for Whittier Tech School Committee position. So given the last 2 nights of long Finance Committee meetings, I have asked Jeff to help out with these, just sort of facilitate a couple of agenda items tonight because he's our fresh legs on the committee that had other engagements. So he's going to take over.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So just a little background. So the school committee has the responsibility of appointing a representative to serve on the Whittier Regional Vocational Technical School Committee. We have 1 seat that then serves on that for a 3-year term. We were notified in early 2024 that our current representative, Gary James, is up for his term expires at the end of March. We've done outreach to see if there were interested community members in serving on that position, and we received 2 applications, one from Gary James for reappointment, second one for Carol Sullivan, and we've invited both of them here this evening. If each of you want to take a seat at the table, we have a few questions that we'll ask. Thank you very much for both making time to come and join us tonight. So we do have some questions, which various committee members will ask. The plan will be that we will start the first question perhaps with Gary, and then after Gary answers, go to Carol, and then we'll start the second question with Carol, and then go back to Gary. At the end of that, we'll see if there's any other comments from the committee members, and then the plan is for the committee to take it under advisement, and we'll make an announcement at the March 21st, or take a vote at the March 21st meeting. And that my understanding is that the term starts on April 1st. So, thank you. I believe Jenny Connolly has our first question.
I do.
And so one other logistical point, we need, because this is televised, essentially, we need to speak directly into the mic, so we'll have to move the mic back and forth. That's fine, but just so that folks are talking directly into it. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Excellent. So my first question is to Gary. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your background.
My name is Gary. Gary for 2 hours.
Yes, I know. I apologize. I noticed it was wrong on the agenda.
That has been my whole life. You really wanted to go to a position where it's 1 hour. People laugh. That's the right to do it. My name is Gary Jane, and I live in a house in Brooklyn.
Right. Carol? The same question. I'll read it again. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your background.
Okay, my name's Carol Sullivan, I'm a customer. Followed you in our moving truck. That's my venue about 44 years ago. We live on East
Sorry, you
Side.
can just speak into the microphone. I just wanted to.
My name's Carol Sullivan. We moved into Ipswich a little over 40 years ago. We live on East Street, and I have a wonderful husband, and we have one son, Zachary, who went through the Ipswich Public Schools. My experience is when I got out of school, I joined the Mason's Executive Training Squad, and then I was in retail for 8 years. As being in retail gave me some real good managerial. I was with Macy's as an assistant buyer, Bloomingdale's as a department manager, and then I flipped to a discount retailer, Hills Department Stores, where I was manager of merchandise information. After that, I decided I would get into education, which was my true love, and I did get a teaching certificate in college. So for the past 33 years, I worked for Essex Tech, which really wasn't Essex Tech. I started at North Shore Boat, and then we turned to North Shore Tech, and then we turned to Essex Tech. So during that time, I have been the marketing instructor. I taught night school there. I was the vocational coordinator. I'm really proud of the student portfolio initiative that I initiated. And we also required that all students present their senior showcase portfolio to people from the industry so that they could work on presenting their skills. And in addition to that, we required that every student get an OSHA 10-hour card. I went from there onto the director of career tech ed. And during that time, we started building Essex Tech, which I also am very proud of. So what we did was we took Essex Aggie, we took some programs from Peabody Voc and then North Shore Tech, and we combined them together. We ended up with 24 programs, and including the ag programs that the kids can go to. And there, I worked with all the teachers, coordinating and working together, and then taking that and having them work with the architects, ensuring their technical areas were designed so that it would be really beneficial to the learning experience. To give you an example, like Autotech. Autotech is designed after a car dealership so that the students were really working in that sort of format. So getting all of the teachers to work with the architects, designing it, then working with making sure the equipment was what they needed, and then going from there working with the OPM, making sure that everything was coming together. So it was wicked exciting. And you have to realize, I started at North Shore Boat, where we rented space at the Shoe, which is now the county center. So I went from the Shoe to this house, to this house, and it's fabulous. And then I retired, and I worked as a co-op coordinator for half-time for the first year that I retired, placing kids in jobs, obviously, performing safety evaluations and scheduling job interviews and doing the paperwork and stuff. I also have done a lot of volunteer activities. I was I was on the political action committee for building this school. So I've never worked so hard on anything in my whole life. It took 6 months. There were 6 women, and we sat and we worked so hard getting, one of the big things I called him to find out why did their position about X. And what he said to me was, you got to have meetings. Have meetings where nobody even comes to, but just have meetings, get the people in, being very transparent, which is what we have to be. And then on top of that, we worked really hard on getting the vote out. I mean, we had poll watchers and, we didn't assume there it passed town meeting. No problem at all. But you said, don't get, comfortable thinking it's gonna pass at the ballot box. Luckily, with the, having the poll watchers and getting the votes out, we were able to help get that passed. Oh, and then I've been a youth soccer coach. I was Commodore, Vice Commodore, and Rear Commodore of the Youth Fiasco. I am the Sunshine Girl for the garden club. I did the ice cream social at Olympic School for 6 years, ran it, and with the cakewalk, and it's always lots of fun. And I volunteered with Council on Aging, driving people to doctor's appointments. I stopped doing that because I got too involved. But so that's my background.
Excellent.
Jenny, can I respond?
Yeah, because
I stopped.
Just take the microphone closer. Yeah.
I'm having issues with my voice, so I really apologize.
Okay.
In terms of education, I have a bachelor's degree from Siena College, a master's degree from Northeastern. I worked in mental health field for many years in a variety of positions, from rehabilitation psychiatry to outpatient counseling. And then I spent the last 25 years in education. I started as a school adjustment counselor in the Florida school system. And then we went from that to the education team leader in the wonderful middle school, and then as well as guidance counselors. In 2002, I went to the position. And I will tell you probably the happiest time of my life. I worked there until 2017 as a guidance counselor slash everything else, with governing advisor, senior class, junior class, stuff, class advisor. And I was there until I retired in 2017.
Great. Carol, back to you. Tell us why you're interested in serving as the town's representative on the Whittier Tech School Committee.
Because I absolutely love Ipswich and I absolutely love education. And I really love vocational education. To see these students learn how to accomplish these tasks and go on and do wonderful things. It's so funny. We live in a 200-year-old house. Every time somebody comes, just had up wire, some wiring, it was a student for lessons. And to see them coming down. I tried to get in this is another reason why we need Whittier to do so well, is I needed to put in a new sink faucet. And Bilo, I call Bilo, he's not taking anybody new on, and there's not enough plumbers. The average age of a plumber is 57 years old in Massachusetts. So it's essential that we do this. I have seen a vocational high school is a really, as Gary said, is a really special place. The students, once they select their program, they then really are joining the family. To watch those students, they're with their teachers 6 hours a day, working on how to get skills, understand. I know they need a new school.
Same question, I'll repeat it. Why are you interested in continuing to serve as the town's representative on the Whittier Tech School Committee?
Let's continue to share the microphone for a couple more minutes.
Oh, it's
and
not
then,
on. It's not plugged in.
We'll have a second one installed momentarily. Thank you.
I have really enjoyed being on the school committee, sort of being on the opposite side of where we are or where we have been. Whittier is a fascinating place. And as I've said, every time I've been to a school committee meeting, come over. I'll buy you lunch. I'll buy you breakfast. See what my culinary kids do. It is such an impressive program and school. Doc, you know, it's a great place. And I would like to remain so I can see the completion of wherever we're going at this point. And again, that is yet to be decided. And I would just like to see it, process it to its finality.
Thank you. Hand it over to Jimmy.
Awesome. So are we going with
I think I'm
Gary or
next.
back to?
Gary?
All right, so I would like to ask you to briefly describe how Whittier Tech and Essex Tech's provision of vocational education serves the best interests of Ipswich's students and their families.
Well, it's amazing. My, the person who works on my car is one of my former students. I know I can right now call a plumber if I need one, because two of my students are master plumbers. Is that,
You have a very nice place.
I think it serves a population that I think is special. I wish you could see when the kids are doing MCAS testing and they're doing geometry, or if I'm sitting with a student. Vocational students have this unique ability to take a shape or a house and literally in their brain move it. I don't have that ability. It's just an amazing sort of thing. And I think we have to be open to kids wanting a new or different experience that unfortunately Ipswich doesn't offer. I've had kids tell me from Ipswich that one of the reasons they don't choose Whittier is because of the music program.
Right.
Because it's outstanding and we don't offer that, nor does Essex Tech
it
offer
doesn't.
that.
That is
So it's a unique place. It really is a unique place. And it is a family. After 4 years, it's a family.
Okay. And I agree with exactly what Gary said.
The mic,
Oh, let's
microphone.
back to the mic.
Wow.
I think we figured it out.
Okay, so we're still using that one.
Okay, I agree with Gary. First of all, Ipswich High School is wonderful. My son
It
came
is.
here and, he had a wonderful experience and he has a, hopefully knock on wood, wonderful life. But, a comprehensive high school is not for everybody. College is not for everybody. One of my problems at Essex Tech was the guidance counselor kept pushing the kid to college, where I had kids that, really wanted to go out and be an apprentice and get to
all
be a
right.
plumber or get to be an auto mechanic. You're right, JJ
Yeah,
went to Whittier from, John's Auto, John Sitko. I mean, seeing our students go into the community and pay back and get things done that need to be done. You can't outsource putting in a toilet. I mean,
No,
we're
you
gonna have
can't.
a real problem with that if we don't have plumbers. So it's an option where, when I started at North Shore Voc, there was no respect given to vocational education.
Right.
And it was like you had to go to college, and if you didn't go to college, you were a
Nothing.
loser. And that is not now. It's wonderful. Now people are respecting the
Right.
trades. They're realizing how important they are for their town. You look at the co-op
Mhm.
program. I've been doing a lot of research on Whittier, and to see all the different co-op jobs where our students are placed. And we need to work more on getting the Ipswich businesses tied in with
Right.
Whittier, so
Right.
that the more exposure we have, the easier it will be able to get people to understand what happens at Whittier. But so really what it is, it really does give the students another option that
Mm-hmm.
isn't here at Ipswich, and Ipswich isn't for everybody,
Right.
we're all a little different.
Jimmy, we also introduced a program last year where students in their senior year can spend half a year with us and explore trade options if they make that decision. So that's another thing that,
Students from Ipswich High.
yes,
Right.
if it's
Come
students from Ipswich
to
High.
their last, to give them the
Yep.
exposure, which is a wonderful thing. Do you?
Sasha, do you have the next one?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take the next question. Thank you both for being here this evening. I think
welcome.
Ms. Sullivan, we'll start with you again. One of the shortcomings of the recent Whittier School Building project was the transparency and communication with the town and with the boards. Something that's certainly been a conversation. Curious in your thoughts, how would we improve that going forward?
I watched the meetings last night and the night before. Heard a lot about how the finance committee felt about, the Whittier project. The way I the way I feel about it is we have to have the school committee rep report to the school committee every month. I would think that's, as a matter of fact, I'll hand them out later. I went online and looked for a job description for a school representative to a vocational school and really couldn't find any. I found one from Belmont where what the school representative was expected to do. And one of the things on that was, aside from just the regular standard school committee sort of things, is the representative is responsible for keeping key elected and appointed officials within Ipswich aware of various developments at Whittier, which impact Ipswich, and getting input from Ipswich boards to share with the Whittier School Committee. So we need to get that conversation going. It also talked about including in that responsibility is meeting on as needed basis with the Board of Selectmen Finance Committee and making presentations to town meetings so that there's no surprises. I mean, when you come up with a $444 million school and tell people in August, that's just not enough time. Everybody has capital budgets and we have to do that. So I really think that last night I was thinking even where there was talking about where I think that the Whittier School Committee, the Whittier superintendent and the business manager should make a presentation to the tri-board meeting when, so that they're explaining the budget. So there's nothing mysterious about it. Essex Tech should too, as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I think. We need to get it out. We also then need to do, get people knowing about the night school, get it really out there, what's going on up at Whittier. People don't realize how great vocational schools are. They're like a little town, aren't they?
Yes, they
You can
absolutely
get your
are.
hair done,
Absolutely.
you can get your car work done, you can have lunch. I mean, they have lunch. They serve lunch up at the Poets Inn.
Mhm.
I saw the senior centers going up there. But the more we can get people out knowing what's going on at Whittier, then people will want to support it because they'll understand what great things are happening there.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. James, same question going forward. How would you propose improving the transparency?
Sure. Going forward, I do feel that I sort of need to explain that in the past history, I was invited to the school committee. This hasn't happened with this current school committee. Many of you are new to the school committee, but we haven't been invited at all, which I think we need to work on. And again, I think we do need to meet. And I think it may not be monthly, maybe every other month, but whatever, there has to be a meeting for us to share. And I know my superintendent and business manager would certainly be willing to be here as well. In fact, they have been here 2 or 3 times with me to present. So yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. There does have to be more transparency. There's enough going on in this town that, yes, we do need to let people know.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to go to Matt, who has our next question.
Oh, hello to you both. For starters, thank you both for the passion with which you describe vocational education. I mean, it's really an infectious passion, and I share that too. I don't know who we're asking. I think Gary. Okay. So what is your view of the regional agreement and the interest expressed by many communities to revisit and modify it?
That's a very good question. And I can't I'll be honest with you. All I have been ever told was that it is what it is. I wish it was more equitable, but I'm not sure how that would happen. This is written many, many years ago. And I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. I tend to get protective of Whittier, I'll tell you the truth.
Absolutely.
And I know we do a terrific job. I know we do a terrific job. And I wish sometimes we would get more credit for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I've read over the agreement, and
Good for you.
they need to get a task force put together and go to the state and get this document changed, in my opinion. I don't know how you're ever going to get it passed if
Right, either.
Ipswich is paying that enormous amount of money when they have 20 students going there. The whole using the K through 12 of all of the students in this town as a basis to come up with, how we're going to charge the town, that doesn't make sense. It's, in my opinion, it's just not logical. I think when this was written back in 1967, it was a different time. And, they were just getting off the ground, and I was reading some articles where it was all tied in with the people coming back from war and everything, and that they were trying to build up vocational education. And I know there was a lot of money back then to build these schools, and that's why you see they're all getting rebuilt now,
Right.
because it was all done in 50, except for North Shore Tech. We were a throw together district after that. But I think that there has to, in my opinion, there has to be a task force. The towns have to take this on. If anything, that's a good thing that came out of this, is that the towns are talking to one another, and if they can get it, they need to get somebody up at the State House. They need to work with this and end up changing this agreement, because it's going to be real hard to get it
Very
passed
hard.
the other way.
I think there was a meeting yesterday, frankly.
Oh, with this
Yeah.
task force, yeah. I know they've been working, and I understand the Newburyport mayor is taking the lead on it.
Thank you both. I'll punt over to Kate.
All right. Thank you. We have just 2 more questions, so thank you for your patience and thank you for being here. So now I'm not keeping track either.
Carol.
Okay, thank you. So, Carol,
Yes.
so what approach would you pursue to address the Whittier building's needs and to build community support?
Well, I understand. I've been watching, as I said, I've been watching a lot of ICAM lately. So I have been watching the school, the Whittier, I went and watched the Whittier School Committee meetings. And I believe that Maureen Lynch, the superintendent, they're going to be doing an analysis of exactly how they're going to be able to approach what they need to do to be able to keep the building going. Right now, that's the first thing, is we got to keep the building going. We got to get the water waste. They were talking about tying in with the Merrimack sewage system. So there's different, they're starting to look at it. And she was very positive, and I really got a good feeling from her on how they want to go and try to fix this. I think the biggest thing we have to do is we have to get that 1967 agreement changed, because no one's going to pay that much money. And a $444 million school is a very expensive payment. And then I think we have to get the senior citizens up there having lunch, and we have to get get them in and say, the library needs a patio put in. We need to get the different technical areas. There's the masonry, the carpentry, helping do things in Whittier that we can point to that will say, these are your students, and your tax dollars are helping pay for this, and they're seeing return on investment. I mean, people don't want to just, I think that's the problem, that Whittier is far away. And so people get kind of, I looked at their bus routes, and one of the buses picks up Ipswich kids at like 6:10 in the morning for a 7:21 start or something like that. And I was like, whoa, that's a long time. But that's how much they like it, because they're willing to get up and get on the
Well,
bus.
and then that bus goes from Ipswich to Rowley
Yeah,
to
really.
Georgetown. So you have to do that route.
So, but that's what I would do, is I would try to get Ipswich residents understanding what's happening up at Whittier and how they can participate and benefit from it. People like to benefit from it.
So I'll just repeat the question.
Okay.
So what approach would you pursue to address the Whittier building's needs and build community support around it?
I agree. I think we need to do more community service, although we have done some.
I
in
don't
the
know what it
town.
is. Tell us
Yeah,
what we did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
And that's what we have to get it out. We
Yeah,
have to get it in
that's
the paper.
exactly what we have to do. We have Tia Roy, who's one of our superstars, another former student of mine who worked at Whittier, who's even started a whole new program of showcasing people from Ipswich and any other community where
Right,
they
and on the
are,
website, and they had
what
student
they're
of the month,
doing.
Right, exactly.
I also think we could be doing it in the paper, the local weekly paper. We could be showing people what we're doing, what we're offering. I think we could do a lot more better publicity. And encourage people to look at the website. I mean, the website is always full of what our kids are doing, where they're going, what they've done. Our kids in Meadowstadt just found an old plan that they found in a old bookcase. And they created it. This beautiful piece of an old black lantern. They made it. It shone. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you need to,
Right. Let people know.
yeah, you need to let people know. And again, unfortunately, we are far. Took me 35 minutes every day to go up and 35 minutes to go
And
to
you were
come
on a
home.
bus.
Yeah,
So you
and
can
I
imagine,
drove.
right?
So it is far away, but that's what I would do.
Thank you.
Ramp up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate both of your comments. They seem to be similar and about sort of showcasing what Whittier has to
But we're
offer.
folk ed people.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we
yeah.
get this stuff.
Yeah. Do you feel that responsibility lies with, who do you think should do that showcasing? Do you think that's part of the job of the Whittier Tech School Committee representative?
To showcase?
Yeah.
I could certainly bring it to the committee. I could certainly bring it to the committee.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna speak certainly for the committee. I
Yeah,
will
yeah.
bring it to them.
I think since we know Ipswich so well, that we can help, get in touch with the people that can make the difference and hopefully get some of that information out. As I said, working with the Council on Aging, getting them up there, talking, letting people know what's available through paper. I was on the website. They have a lovely night school. They have a wonderful night school. They
Great
have,
night school.
Getting people aware that the night school, so we can get that put out in different areas so that people see it. So I think that I think the school committee rep could be very instrumental in helping get that.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Jeff.
I think we're back to Gary. This committee work will involve building consensus with competing interests, both within Ipswich, but also across a diverse Whittier school district. How do you have experience building consensus, and what would be your process for this?
I think I'm a good listener. And I certainly am always willing to listen and to maybe make some suggestions, maybe not make a decision for people, but to help them get to a point where there would be consensus.
Okay, great. I agree with Gary. Again, watching this Whittier School Committee meeting the other night, they obviously know they have a problem. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. They were there, they were talking about sending minutes out after every meeting to all the towns now, trying to get people to understand what's going on. So they already know that there's a problem. So I think if we all work together, and we know our towns, so if we can work together with our towns, bringing our town information, and just not Carol Sullivan's, but, you know, talk to you guys, talk to the finance committee. It was really interesting last night listening to the finance committee and wanting that they really want to be part of it. They, you know, and as with all of this, you know, vote situation, nobody ever said that vocational education wasn't important. It was just the concern of the price and how it was handled in notifying the towns. So I think, as I said, I saw that school committee, they are desperate to get the word out, to build consensus, to get everybody together on the same page, and then to get something passed, is my opinion. And I would like to work towards it.
Before we wrap it up, we'll see if any other committee members have questions, or I would ask the administrators, either Dr. Blake or Mr. Marcus, if they have any questions.
Well, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Committee will be under advisement and we'll make it the next meeting on the.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Same here, same here.
Yeah, I'm retired. Yeah.
2-minute recess to reset the room for our next presentation. Mr. Ames is on his way in. No, he's got it.
Good, how are you?
Believe the mics are still on. Projector and screen should be all set from the last presentation, Mr. Ames. There's a microphone that we need to move. Yep.
That's most people, and how I identify.
Thank you very much.
That should take you about a second or two. Actually,
It's almost 40 does. I'm hoping, you know. Absolutely not. No, I mean, I really am not.
You want you be here then?
Then do we hear? I can stand here if you want.
Let's put that together like this morning.
She's a great member.
Awesome. Glad to hear.
How are you?
if it does, one of us grab it.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Waiting for the school committee member to come back.
Just learning to use PowerPoint.
While we're waiting, I'm not sure if the mics are still hot, but we've got a lot of activity going on in the building. We have the orchestra practicing on the stage as we speak. We have a play rehearsal in another room. And the jazz ensemble just came back from a competition where they scored a high, I think they said a high silver, and they were invited to the state finals.
Good for them.
Great, good announcement.
The choral program last night was
Director, I just saw outside,
unbelievable.
yeah.
So, so good.
Yes, many of us were tied up at Finance Committee. So unfortunately, many of us in the room weren't able to see it. I understand it was fabulous. We're just waiting for.
Okay, yeah, you're okay and your mics are live. So.
Yes, okay, good.
Thank you.
Good.
That. The other silver lining of the pandemic, though, we can watch Oral Fest the next day.
Right.
Though it's way better in person, but it's better than nothing.
Where can you see it?
I've seen some links.
YouTube?
Yeah,
I think
If you just-
Amada is.
Amada. yeah.
Okay. I'd love
Might
to
not
see
be
it.
the whole, sometimes it's not the whole thing, it's just certain performances, but you can usually find most of it.
Hey.
We're back. Thank you for everyone's patience. So we are going to introduce Mariah Marsh, who's here for a Special Education Parent Advisory Council, or CPAC, presentation for us. So welcome and thank you very much. And we're going to ask you to scoot that mic right on in for people that are listening at home. That'd be great.
Good.
Thank you. Welcome.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's
You
not
can hear
for
me.
us,
Hopefully they can hear
but
you.
hopefully at home they can.
All right, so I'm here tonight to talk about the Special Education Parental Advisory Council here in Ipswich. I am a therapist in Gloucester, and I've worked there for 13 years in a community mental health center, and then I worked as an adjustment counselor in a public school setting for the 5 years before that. Now I'm a therapist in private practice. I'm a resident of Ipswich, and my son is currently on IEP, so I have one son. And I basically went to a CPAC meeting here in this room, and they said, we're going to have an election tonight, and do you want to be the president? And I said, I just actually came because I was trying to be nice and be involved, and they said, you're the parent with the least amount of issues, conflict with the district, so you should be the president. This makes a lot of sense. So the then president handed it off to me. There was an election. I won. And then I had to come and be the president, which is fine. And so it's sort of like what I do for my job. I work with children with obviously socio-emotional disabilities, and I'm a child therapist. Works with children with trauma, anxiety, and ADHD is my primary focus. So that's the background that I have, but being here, I'm here as a parent and a resident of Ipswich. So basically, the purpose is it's an organization that every community is supposed to have. Every community is supposed to establish the CPAC, and it's an organized group of individuals. We have bylaws and things like that. And we serve both an advisory and a participatory focus. So we have parents that are involved and interact with each other. And I talk regularly with the director of special education about different things, if she has questions and concerns. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we collaborate with our leader. But basically, the responsibilities of CPAC are to, advise the district, the formal role on matters, and then also to really support parents. And it's a place for parents to come. We have two main ways that people reach us: through our email or we have a Facebook group. So people will all message us, and that's sort of how we connect people. And then during COVID, we met virtually, and now we're meeting again in person at Town Hall. So that's been a piece that we've done recently, and we're planning on doing monthly meetings at least till the summer, and then see sort of where that is. But membership is open to all parents of children with any sort of disability. They can be in a 504 plan, an IEP plan, but it's also for parents that are concerned that their child isn't progressing, concerned that their child has some sort of socio-emotional issue, or isn't making friends, or is struggling with different things. So it doesn't have to be a parent that has a child on an IEP. It can be a parent who's concerned, like, I don't think my child is reading like her sister did, or I'm not. Those kind of pieces, if that makes sense. So it could really be for anyone. A lot of what it is sort of a peer support model, like parents who have been through it. And then also that's really a place, sometimes parents want to call us to talk about things privately. That's been another area where I have found it's sort of different from the Gloucester CPAC, which is bigger, and people are more sort of open about it. In Ipswich, people sort of want to talk about it, but they're not quite sure they want to come to a meeting or talk in a group. So So that's been something where we've had more personal contact with parents. So areas of collaboration. So basically, this is a little slide about it, with like fostering collaboration and advocating for students and ensuring that special ed programs meet the diverse needs of children. This is from the website of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. So that's an agency that's really helpful to us. And the areas we've collaborated with Beverly Hedges are, we do a basic rights workshop every year, but we have the Federation, which is sort of more impartial, do that workshop, which I think is more effective than their sort of district staff. Some parents were sort of hearing about it from somebody else and being able to ask questions from sort of a more impartial agency. And we have a paid membership to this federation, and that's something the district pays for us. So that's been something that we've done. And in the past with Beverly, she's asked about different issues or questions. We've come to her with issues. We've had a lot of contact with parents around reading and specific learning disability, primarily reading or writing, which could be dyslexia, it may not be. That's not, always formally diagnosed by a school setting, but can be diagnosed by an outside neuropsych. But we've had groups of kids that were really struggling with reading. And Beverly was able to do district-wide training on it. So she's been attentive to it and wanting to help get things done about it. And we may have different ways that we want to approach things, but she's able to hear that and work on really educating a lot of the educators, which is a ton of training. It's about like the science of reading, which is something that's been running around, but that's been a big issue. And when I came to the district, at least from my experience as a Doyon parent, there was not a set reading curriculum at Doyon. My son is 17, so it was a long time ago, but that was an issue. And I'd worked in other districts, and I got here and I was like, what's going on here? So they brought in a ton of stuff. So there's been a lot of progress around that reading piece. And many kids learn how to read on their own. Many kids, really need some specialized instruction. There's a big group in the middle that do just fine. But the parents that we're working with are parents that are like really noticing, like they're behind, they're not reading, they're not decoding. So that's been a big issue with reading. And then a lot of it, children with autism spectrum disorder. And also transition planning for kids. That's been a bigger concern too. For kids with disability, what do they do? Do they do jobs? Do they do different things? And it can be, getting first jobs and things like that. It's not that they can't work. It's just getting them transitioned from a school setting to independence. And that's something that was really North Shore ARC has provided some workshops for us. So that's something that's not on the slide, but that's something that we have definitely worked with, and then Beverly will publish it, and she is able to send out receiving those services. It's something that we worked on. That information out. And then future plans is, to continue to be a place for parents to obtain support with questions if they need that. Help parents, with an IEP process. Do they ask for testing? Do they try to collaborate with the school? And identify the best ways to identify their children's academic needs and socio-emotional needs. And then also we've been able to refer parents to other parents or children with similar issues. So if they say, I'm having trouble with reading, and we say, well, we know this person, and then they can sort of have an offline conversation. That's been helpful for us. And then a plan for us in the future is to provide some trainings and educational programming about testing, the differences between a 504 plan and an IEP, and then neuropsych testing versus school-based testing. We've had a neuropsychologist in the past come and present and explain that, and that's been well attended. And then also joint meetings within a local area CPAC, and then also social events for parents. That was an idea, was to do either a coffee hour or to do something, an evening meeting for parents. But it's also very challenging to pull parents in who have children with different stuff going on. Could be sports, could be that, and then also are receiving those special education.
Great. Thank you. This is great work. It's great for us to hear about. I have a couple of questions. So how does your group or the district sort of introduce this group to new families in the district? How do people hear about it? I don't know. Is there a set way, or is it just sort of word of mouth, or is there anything else we can do to make it more?
I mean, I think that's something we can certainly talk with Beverly about the best way. I think sometimes we've talked about having a flyer presented at IEP meetings. That's something that is done in other communities. I was in Gloucester. Well, I'm always in Gloucester, but anyway, I was in Gloucester last week, and the woman at the end said, "Have you heard of the Special Education Parental Advisory Council?" And my client's father goes, "Yeah, she's the president." And the lady looked, and he's like, "In another town." So that was helpful. But that's something that we've talked about. There was a thought of that it's too much information to give parents at these meetings. But I think we could be open to that. Like, we've developed a flyer as well. And Beverly has photocopied that. I'm not sure if that's something that's been consistently done through COVID. But that's something we can always revisit, because I think that's helpful when people are leaving that meeting if they don't quite understand what their rights are, what the plan is, because that obtaining special education services can be very overwhelming for a parent.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. I think we should
I don't
really
know.
revisit that.
Yeah. Just that seems like a great resource, and we want to make sure that families hear about it. And I guess not just at the beginning of the year, because they could need you any time of year. And my other question is, I know we have a school committee liaison to your group. How is that going? And is there anything else we can do to sort of support your efforts?
Well, I'm using his computer, so it's going very well.
Not like right now, just in general.
No, in general, he's been great. We've been in contact and talked about it. And I think that having his perspective has been really valuable, as well as having his perspective and like a view of like, what are we doing? Like, let's get, what can we do to work? I think you've got a very positive attitude, and you're probably the most excited liaison that we've had in a really long time. So that's really enjoyable. No offense to the other liaisons, but just his dynamic view of it and like excitement for it is really refreshing. And I think with something where last year I was working 2 jobs between being in an elementary school and being in private practice, this year I have more time to dedicate it. But we do need to bring in new people because my son will be graduating at some point. And that will be the time to transition. That was the time of transition for the former president. But I think it would be good to get more parents involved. In the past, we've used the prize groups and presented at meetings there. So that's something we should also.
Other questions?
I do want to say, kind of as the liaison, I think the idea of having, you come and do the presentation to the committee and to the public, was to raise awareness of what the organization is, and that anybody, is sort of automatically a member by being a parent in the district, and whether they're concerned or whether they, have a plan on file with the school districts. Having gone as a parent, it's really refreshing. And my first meeting was during a Zoom, but it was really refreshing to see other people on other cameras being like, "Oh, hey, you're here too." And like, it gives you a feeling of like, you're not alone in this, that there's other resources you can do. So I think that's really great. As a liaison, I think Kate hit on the points of like, what can we as a school committee do? I know that you've looked for grant fundings in the past to have speakers come in, and I think that there are some money that might be housed somewhere in one of our accounts.
IEF actually has.
And IEF has some. So, those opportunities and, reporting back to us, hearing how work with the district staff is going. And obviously there's, changes in staffing and things, and how those are going to work together are, I think, really a focus of the liaison position, whether it's me or somebody else. So thank you. I certainly encourage everybody to make it. Do we have a date for the April meeting? So keep an eye on Facebook, and it will be in our announcements once that gets scheduled, so that parents can attend. And then I have also been looking a little bit at the IEP revamp. So that's a May meeting.
Yes, that is
And
a
will be
meeting.
really important for people who are up for, their renewals of IEPs and what accommodations are going to be built into their kids' plans. So.
And I did attend a federation training on it, so it doesn't look as significant, but it is anxiety provoking, I think, for parents. The money that's at the Ipswich Educational Foundation is money that we obtained through a grant, right? Through,
Right.
I believe it was New England Biolabs. So that was to us, and that's sort of gone down, but there is still some money. And that's an option that we have paid speakers to come in the past. That's been an issue of, bringing somebody up here at 7 o'clock at night to present like a neuropsychologist without providing stipend or something like that. That's a lot to ask. These are people that are really specialized.
There's, as of the end of January, I just pulled up an agenda real quick here. As of the end of January, there was $1,177 there. Still.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mariah.
appreciate it. Doing a quick laptop change.
Okay.
I'm going to switch the mic over.
Do we need the microphones back over here? Or are we set?
I think so.
No,
Um,
no, it should be fine.
So next on our agenda is discussion and appointment regarding Payne Grant Committee membership. So I think sometime at the beginning of the year, we announced that we were looking for community members to volunteer to serve on the Payne Grant Committee, which primarily meets in April and May to review staff and teacher submissions for funds that have been provided by the FEFIS Trust. There is a rubric and an application form. I think in the past few years, we've maybe gotten 13 to 15 or so applications per cycle. They have sort of a kickoff meeting, have a week or so to review those applications on their own, submit questions for presenters, and there are Zoom presentations, and then a couple of nights of committee work where they rank those and then ultimately make a recommendation to the school committee about grants that should be funded. This year, we were looking to fill an administrator position, a student or high school student representative position, an community at large position, 2 business reps, and I think I'm missing one, an elementary parent was also up for a renewal. We've previously appointed 1 business rep, and we've heard word from Dr. Blake that Peter Ginolfi, the middle school principal, would like to serve on the committee as an administrator rep. So we would be looking to take action on Mr. Ginolfi's application tonight. And then we have applications from Katie Henry, Betsy Totten, Alexis McIntyre, Aaron Lafarge, and a renewal from Johan Netz for those other positions. So I think we may need to kind of ask kind of what the will of the committee is, or what the preference is about how do we handle these. We don't have everybody here for in person. I think several of us know some of the applicants. So if we want to look through the applications, and if somebody feels comfortable speaking to character or kind of background of the person, we could do that. But it's sort of one of the times where we put out a call and the response was sort of overwhelmingly positive that people wanted to volunteer. And now we have a relatively large candidate pool.
So Peter Ginolfi would be the administrator representing the committee. And then the elementary parent, Johan is asking to be reappointed. Are any of these folks that are on here elementary parents?
No.
Katie is an elementary parent.
Okay.
You have I think that's it.
And then the other, I guess I'm trying to visualize what slot each candidate fits into.
So to summarize, again, we have 2 spots.
We're looking to fill 2 spots.
Community at large.
Community business representative.
And a reappointment or other direction on an elementary parent.
So I will start if I may. I heard from Johan Netz, who I do not know personally, but he did express interest in continuing to serve on the committee. This individual has served on the committee for the past 3 years. They have a fourth grader at Doyon, and has really enjoyed being on the committee and feels like it's an incredible resource for our school system. So, in my opinion, if we have someone who has experience serving in the role and has done a good job and would like to continue, I would encourage support of Johan Netz to continue as the elementary parent representative on the PAIN committee.
If I'm not mistaken, we've had some significant turnover there over the last couple of years, so I would support that because just so that there's some institutional knowledge and continuity on the committee.
We have a lot of new members.
So I've been the liaison for the past 2 years, so I've also, been able to work with Johan in that capacity. I believe he's an educator in another district. He was prepared, he was thoughtful, and I thought about, good questions and insight into the process. So I would also support his reappointment as an elementary parent representative.
That seems like a low
asking for the
hanging
motion here.
fruit.
I think it's you.
Yeah, I will. Any other questions or comments about that? Or do you want to? I will entertain a motion to reappoint Johan Netz as the elementary representative to the PAIN Grant Committee.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor? So we have 7-0 reappointment
Maybe
for
we
the
can do the
elementary
administrator
position.
now, since it's
Yeah.
easy.
So similarly, we had an administrator. We've had a lot of new administrators in the district. So, as Jeff said, Mr. Janoffi, the new middle school principal, has expressed interest. So I think he'd be a great fit as well. It's a great opportunity to just learn about this amazing resource that we're very lucky to have. So I would also support Mr. Janoffi's appointment to the PAIN Grant Committee as our administrator.
So move.
All right, so moved by Diana, second by Sasha. Are you jotting these down? Okay.
Oh, the motions?
Emotions or no?
I will. So Johan was,
Motion by
Johan
Kate,
was-
second by Diana.
Yeah. Sorry, we're without a minutes taker tonight, so we need to
okay, and then it was unanimous.
we'll get minutes
Okay.
with the Zoom call, but we need to document the motions.
And that was a unanimous vote, and then Peter Janolfi.
Was motioned by Diana, second by Sasha. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor? All right, 7-0.
Okay.
All right, so those were the straightforward ones.
So now I think we need some guidance from, the committee, whether I think we have one applicant here. We could welcome Ms. Totten to the mic and hear from her and then do an introduction of the others, or is there another way that the committee wants to proceed?
I was going to suggest the same.
Yeah, so we have all the applications in our folder, and so, I think, that makes sense to start with the candidate who's, and I know at least one other candidate really did, express interest in wanting to be here. She just had some childcare issues, so.
That's fine.
Yeah, so welcome. So this is.
Just a quick intro, and I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind standing at
Standing?
the microphone, thank you, just for the people at home. So if you don't mind just.
You never know which one works.
introducing yourself, I know. Thank you.
Well, I know most of you in the room, but for those who don't, I'm Betsy Totten. I am a parent, Jack and Bill Totten, who are a sophomore and senior in high school. And I've been, just trying to remember, I think I've been a resident of Ipswich about 13 years. So had a lot of community involvement. I was pack master for the Cub Scouts for a number of years. We did that when my kids were young, and was also the Ipswich Town registrar and administrator for youth soccer for many years with 500 plus players. I was And you know, my husband is still extremely involved in that side of things. And then in more recent years, I've been very involved on the high school level from a booster parent's perspective, for varsity soccer, skiing, and tennis. So really enjoy being part of that. And really, to be honest with you, when I saw this come up on the school committee announcements, and it piqued my interest. I started, why am I throwing my name in the hat, or you know, why do I feel qualified for it? You know, candidly, I'm at a stage in my life where my kids are getting older, and I have a little bit more time, and would love to find some opportunities in the community to be more involved. And things with kids always pique my interest, and being able to give back and help and enrich their experiences. So, you know, it certainly was something that stood out to me when I saw it on your newsletter. The other thing is I've had children go through all stages of the you know, school levels, starting in Doyon and middle school and high school, so I can provide perspective for all the different levels, regardless of where the grant need is or, you know, what's being looked at. So I have experience in those pieces. I have a great community network from all of the community things I've done over the years that is certainly available to help and, you know, kind of move things forward. And then I would also reflect professionally. I work for Marriott International. I'm a global account executive, and you know, my world is about relationships, and I work on teams on a daily basis, and I have a very collaborative, sort of genuine approach, sort of taking those strategic partnerships and helping move things forward. So have a lot of sort of proven track record and success with those types of things. So, and I would certainly bring that to the committee and helping them sort of achieve their goals. And lastly, I'm in the process of finishing out my MBA, so I bring my business hat to it as well. So, you know, certainly, you know, be excited for the opportunity. If there's other questions or things that I can answer, you know, certainly happy to discuss it. But thank you for the consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to just kind of, well,
I
you
think
go.
we can go through the applications for the candidates who are not here. So I think the first was Katie Henry. So I met Katie through her store. So she would be a candidate for the business representative, which is Labor in Vain on Main Street. I believe her application says she has a second grader at the Winthrop School. She's a former educator. She worked at a public school in New York City. And also has some other in-town volunteering community experience. I think she says she's a board member on IEF, so she may have some working relationship with Dr. Blake and Matt as our representative, and some other organizations and groups in town. Does anybody know Katie or have anything else to add?
I don't.
What role on IEF?
Says that she's a board member at IEF. The next candidate that I have some familiarity with would be Alexis Serpitsky McIntyre. Alexis also owns a business in town. She owns a RE/MAX office that's scheduled to open on Market Street later this year. So she's a real estate agent. She is very active in the community. I've met her through Nice People of Ipswich, Awesome Ipswich, of which she's a trustee of. She's on the recreation committee in town. She runs an annual, I believe, backpack drive where they have collect donations and stuffed backpacks for foster children. So she has a lot of community service, parent of a high school student and middle school students. Anyone else have anything to add about Alexis? And then we received an application from Karen Lafarge. I don't know Karen personally. Jenny, I think you have some experience and know Karen.
I do. I got to know Karen during the campaign, and I was pleasantly surprised. She ended up becoming a great friend of mine. Solid character, creative. I'm always hearing about different ideas that she has for the town, the schools and the town. And she's proactive. I think, and the dedication that she has to serving by running for the school committee. And, you know, she knows what a commitment that is, what that would be. And she ran. So she's ready to take on, any way of serving Ipswich that, she dearly loves. And she's a confidant. She is, I'm thankful that much more. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I believe that she was volunteering at the polls on Tuesday. So
Yes,
another
yes, she's
item
signed
of
out.
community service.
She's there. She's on it.
She's come to a bunch of meetings as well.
Yeah.
So at this point, I guess we're, again, still looking for feedback from the committee about whether we're ready to make appointments or whether there's a procedure or if there's a motion on the floor for an appointment.
Let me just make a couple of comments. First of all, Betsy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Want me to leave? I don't know if you want me to discuss. I don't know if that's awkward. It's never
I don't mind saying in front of you if you want to, yeah.
You'd say it to me.
It's more
Whole
your-
town's
Yeah,
TV
we're
anyway,
all on
so.
camera. No, I think for Mrs. Totten, the experience that she brings, both the broad and long history, different groups within Ipswich, always related in some way to education, youth, and the involvement that she's had, the experience and expertise that she brings because of that is nice to see. And also with Mrs. McIntyre, the awesome Ipswich and the work that she's doing there. You talked about, while she would be new, there's some history there, or at least experience related to the grants and the consideration, and also thinking more broadly about the financial aspect, but making that decision. I think that's a nice addition as well.
I just want to be clear, we're looking at community at large, 2 candidates. I think that is Betsy and Karen.
Well, so here's what I'm
I'm trying-
confused about.
That's why I asked that question earlier
Because
on.
for the business rep, our choices are Katie Henry or Alexis McIntyre, I believe. So we have 2 choices for business rep. Community at large could be any of 4 of the candidates because they're all community members.
Right.
In my mind.
Mhm.
So, which further complicates things. I mean, we're in a good situation. I think we have some great
Right.
candidates.
Typically-
and typically this doesn't
right.
happen. So I do want to send the message that, thank you to everyone for applying. We don't have enough seats. This opportunity will come up again in the next year and the year after that. There is, there's turnover. There's also some open seats on the smaller grant, the Twig Grant Committee, as well as every now and then a school committee seat opens up. So there are lots of opportunities to get involved in schools. So it's, it's a good problem to have, but it's a challenging decision.
So should we, I understand, so we have 2 candidates that potentially would fit the business community role.
Mhm.
And then because community at large could potentially be all 4, should we vote on the business
Business rep
role
first, that
and
makes
then
sense.
vote on the community?
Right? Yeah. And just one other thing I had thought about earlier today was since this is not a position where we're, compared to the position we just appointed or talked about appointing for Whittier Tech, where we're really looking for a specific skill set. The Payne Grant Committee is a little more general, I think, and there are many people could fulfill this role with a variety of experiences. So one thing I thought about was perhaps we think about giving it to, early applicants if we feel like everybody is qualified. We could think about it that way, giving the positions to the people who did apply first as an option to be equitable, but that's just an idea.
You're saying doing that for this round?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't disagree, but I also you know, if we left it open, then people are applying, thinking they might get it, and then we're gonna be like, oh, never mind, that you shouldn't have even bothered, you know, it's just a little tricky.
If there's a preference to approach the business representative first, is there a motion for one of the eligible candidates?
I move to appoint Alexis McIntyre, Sapritsky McIntyre, as the business rep to the Payne and Grant Committee for 3 years.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Second. Wait a minute.
Sorry. Motion by,
Alexis, motion
Diana?
by Diana, and a second.
by Sasha.
Okay. And this is for the business rep.
Local business representative.
Okay.
All in favor? Okay, so 17.
And then that would give us with 3 applicants, Karen Lafarge, Betsy Totten, and Katie Henry for the committee at large. Does everybody have a motion to fill that opening?
I have a motion to, is that right? Appoint Karen Lafarge as the community at large member for the Payne Grant Committee.
For a second? A second? Other motion? Do you have a discussion?
I motion to appoint Betsy Totten to the community at large position for the Payne Grant Committee.
I'll second.
By Jen. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Oh, 6-1.
So I would just suggest, in order that we're just keeping people motivated to want to approach volunteer opportunities with the school committee, that we work with just a communication that we can send out to not only the people who have been appointed, kind of acknowledging their term, but also everybody else who did step up and give us an application, keeping them apprised of future volunteer opportunities and just thanking them.
Yep, definitely. And we are in the process of developing a spreadsheet of all of our appointments and sort of so we can, we know what they all are, but just sort of having them all in one place and keeping on top of when people are up, advertising for them, and also having deadlines for the deadlines because some applications came in quite late, which is fine. And we've considered everybody, but I think it would be more effective if we had a due date and then I think it would be a more efficient process. So we will aim to do that. So thank you very much for everybody who applied, and look forward to the folks who didn't get appointed tonight to reapply for something in the future. It's a great committee. That's the first committee I was ever on back in 2012, and I really did enjoy it. So now I'm here, so it hooked me in. It's a great committee, so thank you very much. Okay, so next up on our agenda this evening is the MSBA Statement of Interest Review and Discussion. So this, I believe, is going to be led by the School Facilities Working Group, which is comprised of Sasha, Jen, and Diana. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. So I want to take us through a little bit of the discussion around the SOI. Our intention this evening is not to go line by line through the document, but I'll sort of start as a reminder because of the complexities and a little bit of the history of the intention of the SOI is to receive state funding assistance with the intention of repairs, or building new school building. The intention of the SOI and what's included in there is the identification of the deficiencies and the needs of the schools. Nowhere in there is questions about or our communication of intentions of what we would do. That comes after we're accepted and is a lengthy process. We've talked here in this body before. I wanted to reiterate it, but also for those watching at home. Those are really two distinct things. There is connection, but they are two distinct things. Our focus with the SOI is where there are issues with the existing schools. An important piece of that is that while the physical structure, the building, the systems are a key aspect of it, really it's about the overall educational environment and how the facility and the systems impact that. And in particular, where there are unmet needs of the students and teachers because of those deficiencies. And that's what the intention of the SOI is, to communicate to the MSBA as part of the request for funding assistance. The vote that we will take, and I'll remind everyone of the timeline in a minute, but the vote that we would take is similar to the vote that the select board takes, which is the approval to submit the SOIs, one for each of the elementary school, to the MSBA. We're not voting specifically on every single individual question, what's included, how we respond to that. It's important to us as the working group to make sure that everyone has seen it, has an opportunity to ask questions about what we've included. We're also getting information from the principals to be included in there, so you've had a chance to see all of that. Answer questions, suggestions as well. Think about this very much as the way we go through both policy and the newsletter, where we want to make sure you've all seen it, provide feedback. I mentioned it last time, don't feel like you have to go line by line, checking numbers, recontribute, things like that. That's not the intention of why we've circulated it. In our folder, and I want to be specific because there's a couple of things in there, there are two sets of documents for Doyon and for Winthrop. There are the PDFs that are labeled public. That's what's on the site. That's what's been shared with the public. In there, there's information that's been redacted. There's anything that's specifically related to security, of which there were a few things that were mentioned for each of the schools. I want to make sure that that was clear for this group, because you'll see both, just so you understand the difference between the two. The one labeled public is the one that has been shared out. And so also for those that have in the public that have read those, or see to understand why there's content that was redacted. Take another second to go through the dates. We talked about this in our meeting last week as well. All of the documents, or excuse me, each of the SOIs, one for each school, is in the folder and available for everybody to review. They were just posted this morning. Our intention was to share earlier this week. We wanted to make sure we took the time to redact and with caution, so we were a little delayed in posting those, both for all of you as well as for the public. They've all been out there as of this morning. We're asking for all of you to take a look and provide any feedback by next Friday. That's the 15th. The documents were each of the SOIs were also shared with each of the elementary school principals, asking for their feedback. And again, in particular, for them to share their feedback on impact of the facilities, the systems, on the educational plan, the students, and the teachers. So that's particularly what we're looking for from them. Some of that is in there, but we really want to make sure that it's their voice in there. The facilities work group will then finalize the SOIs by that following Tuesday. That's the 19th, so that we can bring it to the full school committee meeting on the 21st. Our intention there is to ask for a vote at that point. We want to wait and share the final SOIs. As I said, the intention of the vote is on whether we submit, but want to make sure we're sharing that. We also will be going and meeting with the select board in one of their upcoming meetings. Same thing, we'll share with them the SOIs and ask for their vote as well. We need a vote from both the select board and the school committee. Our goal is to be ready to submit those by April 2nd. They're not due till the 12th. We wanted to make sure that we had ample time in case there were questions, any reason that we needed extra days to finalize.
The other piece too is that these are not in the format that they have to be submitted. So once all the approvals are done, I'll need to load everything into the system in the format that's required, along with the requisite votes, and then send it around electronically for the necessary signatures from school
Great.
committee chair and
Great point. We wanna
town
make sure we have
town
time for
manager. So I want to make sure that we have enough time for all of that as well.
Can I add just while you said that, and I think you're getting there, that, again, well, some of us did this last year, but the vote is to authorize Dr. Blake to submit. It's his process that we are all involved in, but
Yeah, there's boilerplate language that MSBA gives both the select board and the school committee that has to be used in order to make those motions, so that it's not a.
Yeah. I'm going to read an excerpt from it right now to clarify to exactly your point. Thank you both for the segue. And I'm quoting here, vote of the school committee and select board to authorize the superintendent of schools to submit the SOI. So that's very specifically what the vote is to allow you or to request you to make the submission of the SOI, which describe and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories, which I mentioned before. It's the deficiencies of the current schools. It's not what our intended plan is moving forward. I'm going to pause. I want to talk about the priorities. That is the specific areas that we are citing in each of the SOIs, but let me just check. Questions, comments, any elaborations on sort of what I've covered logistically, what the next few weeks, the ask is?
I will nail down a date with the select board. I have a chair's call on Monday afternoon, so I think we hoped for March 18th or April 1st. So
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that.
if you guys have a preference, let me know and I'll ask for that date.
I think when we had discussed, our suggestion was the 18th. That way, in case they have request any follow-up or additional time, we can come back for the 1st and still make our time. So that would be our preference, if feasible. In the documents that you have in our meeting folder for this evening, there's a document for both, or for Doyon, there's a document for Winthrop. As you go through, similar to policy or newsletters, make comments, ask questions in the document. Over the course of the next 8 days, we'll ask for your feedback by next Friday, the 15th. When we meet next, we'll go through to resolve those questions, include the updates, make those changes. If there's specific questions that merit discussion, if it's not just something simple, we'll bring those to our school committee meeting on the 21st. The one other thing that I wanted to specifically highlight in the documents are the priorities. The priorities that were selected last year were number 2, which was elimination of existing severe overcrowding, and number 7, replacement of or addition of obsolete building in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. We selected, that's for both.
Oh, that's for both.
It's number 2 and number 7 for Doyon and for Winthrop. We've selected both of those again this year. The need continues to be the same. In 1 year, we haven't seen major changes there. What we did discuss in recent meetings is that we are also going to select priority number 5, which is replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems. When you're selecting the priority, it has specific questions related to those. What we saw, and in particular when reviewing SOIs from other districts that were accepted, several of them had selected number 5, or a good number of them had selected number 5. In reading through it, it gave them an additional opportunity specifically to call out the issues that some of the systems were contributing. Classrooms that are way too hot, way too cold, the distraction and dangers of leaky roofs and windows, several other conditions that are electrical, thank you, yeah, that are not minor issues. And so what we've done and what you'll see in there is we've also selected number 5 for both Doyon and Winthrop because it gave us additional opportunities to call out those issues. Our intention there is to further and better make our case of why we need the funding for each of our elementary schools. The one last thing that I'll note, we're also including additional detail about both 3A and the large building projects that are contributing to an additional number of students. contributing to the overcrowding and the amount of space, not just in the classroom, but all that additional space that we need for everything out, a host of things that will contribute to issues in future years. So we've added that as well. I'm going to stop again. Anything?
Oh, do you want to go first?
I think, well, I just want to say that part, the 3A and the Essex pastures did not end up in the draft that they can see.
Okay.
Is that true? I
didn't think you were done with
I
it,
saw it.
so I left a placeholder.
I saw it.
Okay.
Oh, did you put it in?
I put it in the
Oh.
placeholder, but I don't see it in these drafts.
It's not, it wouldn't be in the public one then, because those were printed this morning.
Okay. It will be there. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I
Right.
didn't realize that.
And I'll add that we discussed whether or not to then check priority, yet another priority, not just 2, 5,
4.
and 7, but it was priority 4, which would read prevention of severe overcrowding expected to result from increased enrollments. And the reason why we decided not to check that, but that it would fall under, I think, priority 2 of overcrowding, was that it's far out, but included, especially Essex pastures, included in our demographic study. But it was enough to include as an overcrowding reason, but not a whole new priority for future increased enrollments.
And could you just could you pull your mic a little closer and then speak to your process of gathering information about that? Like, who did you speak to? And
So I spoke to our town planner, and I also got on our town website for our 3A task force. And he pointed me in the direction of our town website, which had, a lot of information about the number of units proposed for Essex pastures and what is actually approved today, and what is potentially going to be approved. More units are approved. If more units are approved. So like I said, our demographic study has the information about the 151 units at Essex pastures that are already approved that could be built today. And that, so we've kind of included that in our research in preparing for what we want. And then we spoke a little bit about 3A and how, it's coming. And the task force has done a lot of work, and it's going to be presented at fall special town meeting, but that it's a little bit more in the future without specific, I shouldn't say unit count because there is a unit count, but it's just more of what's already here. That's already established. So it might not grow a population so quickly.
and it's also if it gets
Right. If it gets
built, 'cause
passed.
it's not a building project, it's a zoning project.
Right.
So yes, we want to look at the potential. Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate that research. I think it's good to be looking into that for sure.
Can I,
Anna, you were gonna-
I'm going to just
yeah,
add
go
to
ahead.
what you said, that we did have like a really good discussion about it. Like, did it warrant being its own priority? And number 4, Jen did a lot of good research on that. We were able to take what she got, look at our demographic study, do a little bit of like back of the envelope math, and it like we did not feel, based on what we know today, that there would be a significant change. We're not demographic enrollment studiers officially, but we did not feel it would be significant. So I say that because I don't want voted in saying that we think it's going to be growing our enrollment to extreme numbers. That's not the conclusion that we got to at this point, the 3 of us. But it was certainly worth noting because we do know that there are things happening in town.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Any other questions in general? Otherwise, our ask is take a look at the documents over the course of the next week. Add your comments and questions. Anything else for this evening?
I just have
Yeah.
a couple. First of all, thank you. So much work. So it was great reading it. It's great. Can we add teacher testimonials About like, I know you're talking about the principals. I don't know if the,
Do you want to touch on your,
We
you
gave it to
asked
the
them to do?
principals and with specific questions that we want them to elaborate on. So as far as teachers will have an opportunity to weigh in
Mhm.
on it, and I believe they did in the past as well.
yeah.
Um,
I didn't know if they
It
had like
is,
a personal,
yeah.
like specific thing that, adds the
it-
human.
We can, the difficulty with that is MSBA in their process wants things to be concise as best we can. So I think they want to limit
Yeah,
that to some degree.
right.
But certainly if there's things that are like
Yeah.
alarming, earth-shattering, then
Yeah.
we can certainly include them.
Or they can just so happen to be sent with it. We'll just send those along, just.
What is important is the spirit of where you're getting at, which is we're hearing directly from
Yeah.
those in the school. Now,
Right.
exactly. And it's beyond, like I said, it's not just the physical structure, it's the impact on the students and the
Programming.
teachers. That's exactly what we want to hear. So the answer is yes, we're going to get that from the principals and from their teams.
right? I believe the ask was like to solicit feedback, not just ending at the principals, but for them to
Mhm.
do some
That's exactly
outreach.
it. Yes.
And we actually haven't talked about it yet in our committee because we haven't gotten there yet. But last year we included the IEA statement that they made, which I would imagine we will be including again. That's very powerful.
Mhm.
Good point.
There are multiple documents we submitted last year,
Yeah.
I remember. So we should go through that
Documents.
list and make sure that those, because I do remember I don't know if it was the enrollment study, the listening session report, like there was a lot of stuff we submitted. So that should sort of be, not to add something else to your list,
That's
but
important, yeah.
there should be other documents that we vet and make sure we want to include those too.
And did you have another comment or question?
Shockingly, yes. Speaking of teachers, should we note on page 21, question 3, that, when it comes, I'm not at that point yet, I'm scrolling, but it talks about the education that the kids are receiving and, how it affects, how the building affects them. But I thought maybe it would be a nice thing to put in how amazing our teachers are and how, they fight to keep the quality of the education really high, and the building's a partner to them. And that's the part that's, a struggle. So they're trying to do, they're doing wonderfully, even in that environment. That's how strong our teachers are.
Appreciate that. I'm making the note right now. Thank you. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Or Jenny, did you have another one?
No.
That's what this time is for.
She's
so
unveiling
please,
the list.
You flipped the page. I didn't know if there was something on the other side. Other questions, comments?
I just have a quick comment for sort of the public. I just want to challenge the thought that I've heard in the community that we have to submit something different. We can't submit the same thing. I think we are all in agreement. We absolutely have to go back, update it. I love the addition of Priority 5. I think that's spot on because I think our systems are in dire need of repair. But I have a sense from certain community members that they're, we didn't get accepted, so there must be something wrong with our SOIs and we can't submit them again. So I just want to make it clear to everybody that I think everybody here knows, but everybody listening, over 70% of the SOIs that get submitted every year get rejected. That's just, they accept somewhere between 20 and 30% of the SOIs. So that said, many of them do get accepted down the road. So when we applied, well before any of us were on the committee, we applied in 2012, in 2013, and we got accepted in 2014. So that happens. It's not uncommon. So perhaps there was something wrong with our SOIs, but it also is very likely that we didn't get in because of who we were up against. So I just want everyone to know that, there's only so much money the MSBA has. The vast majority of MSBAs do get accepted, but we sort of, not we, Diana did a sort of analysis of projects that have failed at the ballot, and then many of them did get accepted in subsequent years. So I just want to point that out, that our application wasn't necessarily flawed. I think we absolutely should revisit it and resubmit the best things we have, but
Well, and to come full circle in the conversation, where you started, Sasha, was the notion that the submission of the SOIs and the purpose of the SOIs is simply, very simply, to identify the deficiencies in the existing buildings and why we need funding support. That's it. Because once an SOI is accepted, then begins the process of a feasibility study, community discussions, and all of the other steps anew, essentially.
And the feasibility study is actually well after you get invited in. So I was spending time on the website, the MSBA website. So if you get invited in, it's the 270-day eligibility period. That's before the feasibility study. So part of that eligibility period, I think I had it pulled up. There is a very detailed information about an enrollment analysis that they do. So it's not until you're almost a year after you've been accepted that you really start to talk about solutions, concrete solutions. So
A couple meetings ago, we had a discussion, I think, along these lines, and I think I said this, I don't know what the meeting was, but, and I feel that there were not deficiencies. That's not why we didn't get accepted. It's definitely who we're compared to. But I do think that the MSBA called us and said, what's different? And we don't have a lot that's different. We have more aged buildings. And I proposed the idea of, and I still believe this, and we've talked about this in our working group, that prioritizing, because there's two different priorities. So, like, there's this list of priority check boxes that we've already gone over, but then there's the list of, or the choice of, when you submit more than one SOI, you can only prioritize one school. And I am a believer in prioritizing Doyon this time around for many different reasons. I think I said this last time. I think our community feels that if there's a combined school, and I also believe in checking the box for consolidation, if there's a combined school, it's going to be at Doyon, but it would give us many more options to discuss the further we go down the road of, what the cost of that is going to be. And I think prioritizing Winthrop, again, takes away options, because I don't think right now there's community support for one school there. And there's just a lot more options, and maybe community consensus around putting Doyon first and the options that come along with that.
So what options does it take away? I'm not
To
clear on
put
that.
Winthrop first
Yeah.
as a priority.
Yeah.
So it takes away the ability to, if you have Winthrop, if we get into the process and feasibility deems one combined school, I think the community has already said they don't want it on the Winthrop property. So it's taking away that. It's basically saying, let's put Winthrop first, but then let's put the school at Doyon, which is exactly what got our community into the battle of last time, that we all know the arguments that there's people that still want an in-town school, people that still want a small school. And then because of the site of Winthrop, if a small school is what the community thinks they want, it's very difficult to build on the site with the kids there. If Doyon was prioritized and chosen, and at that point, I'm just going to say the price tag, it came up at FinCom the other night. If one combined school, if we're looking at $100 million, is the community going to say that's okay at that point in time? Or could we build a small school where a large school might be in the future? And then when we need to build a school on the Winthrop site, put Winthrop kids in what is now Doyon. I think there's just many more options if you put Doyon as a priority.
Can I? In the scenario you just described, I'm not following the logic that us saying that Doyon is in such bad disrepair that we need to focus there, but then maintaining the building so that we can use it 10 years down the line for another cohort of students.
I think feasibility would determine that.
When I look at
Two
the,
separate-
Go.
I would say just the separate things. The selection of the priority is a communication of which building is in a worse state.
that's what I was going
It
to
is,
say.
which is different than how we might proceed should one both be accepted, whether that be combined school location. Intention with the articulation of the priority is that Winthrop is in a worse state. When we discussed this last month, it was also, the conversation was around, last year, the decision was based on the conditions of the school, Winthrop was in worse condition.
Means that way.
We went back to look at, in the last year, has anything changed that in either of the schools that might flip that? And that hasn't been the case. And so I think it's also pertinent that we continue with that. We would certainly get that question from the MSBA. I don't know that we can defend a position that Doyon is in worse condition and that has changed over the last year. That's also my concern with changing the priority. I don't think we can back that up objectively with changes in the facility, the building, the system.
I just had a clarifying question. If we were to set Winthrop as the priority and then wish to pursue a combined school at Doyon, does that mean the funding's no longer available because we've chosen that site?
It's a great question because I think that's part of the complexity. That option is certainly still on the table for us afterwards. This is, the reflection of the priority is about the current state of the buildings, not what we would choose to do going forward. And that's where it gets difficult. Yeah.
The solution has to impact the students who are experiencing, poor conditions.
Well, I think that the option that you lose is the ability to do a school, a small school on the Doyon site first. That's, if you select Winthrop as the priority, you could not then, without MSBA permission, you could not say, we actually want to do a small school at Doyon for a 450 student population.
Why
And
couldn't you just move the Winthrop kids in there? It's
It
solving
just
a
feels like it's a
solution for
conversation
the.
that's so far ahead.
Yeah, no, I
That's
agree. And I
my-
agree we should, oh, sorry.
Well,
You finish.
but that's the option that you lose.
Okay.
The second, with the priority issue, is there a regulation that says your priority has to be your worst school? Because if we were applying for an MSBA program for the middle school, high school, we could say this is our priority. And it's our priority because the educational quality is not as good. The heating stinks, whatever it is. So I don't know that it's worst condition. I think it's what the district feels is its priority. And what the district could say might not be physically the worst building.
I think it's
And then the second part is, they didn't actually do a site visit for us last time. They said, we know Ipswich, we know your buildings. They denied our application based on the competition or whatever their other feelings were of Ipswich isn't ready. So if we were to switch it, I think there's justification for it. It's still a school in need. It might be our priority because our long-term strategy is we want to keep the most things, most options open. The fear that I have is if you go forward with the same old, either they say, "You come back to us when you guys have done some more," or we get accepted. And then we go for feasibility 270 days later, and the town says, "You didn't listen to us." Because it's that 2/3, which is a supermajority, which is a pretty easy threshold. And I've sort of said, I'm like, I think we're in a position that we may be funding our own feasibility at some point. But we're now starting to rely on those sources, which, is just a concern. And this is our chance. I think this is our last chance. If we get in and we fail, the MSBA is not going to give us a third time. So we got to be cautious about shutting out a third or more of the voters right at the beginning by not saying, we're going to keep your option open.
I would suggest the path that you're discussing prioritizes that third over the 2/3 that
But
we've
it
heard from the
keeps a
past.
consolidation. We're checking the box. Ultimately, there's a very good chance that that's the school that comes in, but we need every vote that we can get.
And part of what I did out of my own curiosity and with our working group is I looked at the 10 elementary schools that were invited into the process this year. One of them was that their priority school wasn't accepted, but their other school was. There are out of those 10, there are only 2 that were consolidated projects. The rest are small elementary schools. So this isn't including middle and high school. And, Winthrop was built in 1956, Doyon in 1965, and then the addition. But some of these schools, 1962, 1975, 1969, the consolidated schools, they're 100 years old and over 100 years old, those 2 that are consolidating. But to say that Doyon wouldn't get accepted we don't know if Winthrop would get accepted. Doyon's got a lot of deficiencies. I don't think, and I was at least aware of conversations when, Winthrop was accepted in 2014, and then the MSBA came out and said, oh, Doyon needs it too. They were the ones that helped suggest consolidation because of the condition of Doyon. I don't think Doyon alone would not get accepted if it were chosen as a priority.
Do you want to speak first?
No, go ahead.
I struggle to understand why we would not put the students who are experiencing the most impacted, negatively impacted education, why we would not put that first. If you take the SOIs and go line by line, I feel we have a very objective comparison. And we need to be thinking about which school, we're talking about 2 schools, but we don't know, we could be compared to 60 schools. Which one of ours is going to stand out and get our town on the path to fixing this problem that has been so incredibly harmful in every way, shape, and form for our students and our town, since we have not fixed it.
But if we make the wrong decision now,
Julian.
and we don't, if we make the wrong decision now, or we not the wrong, if we choose a path now, and it doesn't, it sets off a subset of our voters, and that just kills the project, then I think that we've wasted a whole nother cycle. So I just think making a decision that doesn't force our hand to get rid of a consolidated school, that is going to be studied, but it does tell a third plus 38% of the vote, or 38 votes, we don't want to listen to you. And that is not a way to start this process. We saw it in the paper this week. I mean, they're already coming out, and I know that the other side's going to come out. And I don't think people are paying attention because it's not in their face yet. But I just have reservations about telling someone right off the bat, your opinion doesn't matter to the committee. We're going to go this way, but then we need their votes later.
I have to
That's an
disagree with that
opinion.
premise.
That's an opinion.
And I said, I have.
No, I think that's unfair to the people of the town. I think there's every single person, including whether they believe we should have, where the school should be, what the configuration. Every single person, I think, recognizes there's a need in the schools. Ultimately, what that solution looks like, people have a different perspective. The SOIs allow us to proceed with requesting additional funding from the state so that no matter what, we need to proceed in some way. This allows us to support it with state funding. And I think there is almost unanimous understanding from the town that that's necessary and that's valuable. I don't think that this creates a divisive situation. It allows us to proceed by communicating where is the biggest need for our students and for our teachers. And that is what we're selecting here. It is not an indication or a communication of a couple different versions of configuration. We've not had any of those conversations. That is not what this does. I think it's misleading to the town to communicate that even here.
Agree.
But does selecting one priority over another eliminate a solution?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. And that's the conversation that concerns, because we have it here and it communicates to the town that that might be the case. That's absolutely not the case.
So I don't think that you are going to resolve this tonight. I think that I think this is another conversation that needs to happen. But the SOIs are the SOIs, and the information in them is what's there. And we're spending, granted, it's a big decision, but we're talking about one checkbox in a 33-page document right now, right? So we're not going to resolve this now, but at some point it's going to come down to a vote as to whether we're checking the box or actually,
We don't even
No.
have to vote on that.
Nope.
We don't vote on that.
I
We're
don't think
voting to
it's a-
authorize submission of the SOIs, not the content of the SOIs.
well, there's, yeah. So we're submitting them or we're not. You're right.
And did you circulate, because you had reached out to Chris Reyes about his opinion of the, his knowledge of the buildings and where he saw the
yes.
most significant
Yeah.
need?
Yeah, I had, after one of our last conversations, just around the shape of the buildings, and he still feels, and Brad does as well, that Winthrop is in far worse shape than the Doyon, Olaf Doyon School. So just with the steam pipe issues underneath the ground and the electrical configuration and space, that other boiler is on its last leg. So, I mean, he did indicate that to me.
So I'd like to I want to just make a comment about what Diana said about the children or the students that were impacted most. I think part of the passion of what comes from our community members about the students and wanting to keep a school in town is that despite the crummy buildings, our kids are getting an amazing education. And this process started when my now senior was in second grade when I got involved. And she's had an amazing education that started in a very old, rundown building. So I don't think that it is what students are being impacted more. And I just want to state that for the record. I think our kids are having an amazing education, despite the buildings. I do think that what if we have a meeting 2 weeks from now, what if we, because you have a public document to review, what if we reviewed it and came back and had this conversation again about prioritization and how we feel?
In order to vote to then submit the SOIs, does the committee have to come to a consensus on the priority?
No.
It's Dr. Blake's document.
Okay.
I didn't quite hear that, Diana.
It's Dr. Blake's.
Oh, Dr. Blake's down. Gotcha.
It's authorizing me to submit a completed document,
You sign it, I sign it.
and the town manager signs it.
Well, what if, I don't know, I think we should talk more about this prioritization. I feel pretty strongly about doing something different. But if I'd like to make a motion to come back in 2 weeks at the meeting on the 21st and vote on prioritization of the document of what school gets priority.
Would that be?
Discussion, yeah, rules wise.
I don't think we
I
need a
don't know how
motion
to
and a
vote with
vote to discuss something in 2 weeks. I think it's automatically, I mean, we haven't planned the agenda, but clearly this is
Adam?
going to be on it because
I was
that's part
referring
of
to
your
the,
timeline.
to the vote on the selection. What would the,
I can make a motion to vote on priority, right?
But I don't know, because it's his document. We can't vote on you doing things that are within your purview specifically, you know.
I don't think we would be voting tonight on a priority. You were
No,
suggesting at the
no.
next meeting, right?
Right.
But even,
my
yeah, go ahead.
question is, what would that look like?
I motion.
No,
No,
not the actual
no.
motion, rules wise.
It's like
Maybe
operational.
that's a follow-up.
Right.
I can look into it
Be
between
like,
now and
we
next
vote
week.
for you to hire this person. Like, that's not our job. It's your job, you know, whatever.
Would we just present our arguments, our thoughts to Dr. Blake, and then he takes the information from there?
What are your thoughts, Dr. Blake?
I think that it warrants further discussion. If I look at it in the strict sense of the definition, by all indications, Winthrop is in worse shape based on the information that we have as far as the facilities director and assistant director, the information that they've shared with me and their concerns, past experience with the buildings. If I look at the strict definition of what the priority is, it's Winthrop. If folks are looking to change the definition of priority because it's going to give us other options or I think we're going to have to substantiate that to the MSBA, and I don't know that we can. But I mean, the school committee is authorizing me to submit a complete document. And so what I'm going to be doing is copying and pasting essentially completed documents into the form for submission and signing off on those documents. Once you vote on the submit the SOIs, it's not my purview to go changing those, right? I wouldn't add paragraphs after they've been reviewed and changed and put together, right? So I think the school committee needs to decide at the end of the day what that's going to look like.
So to frame this in my own head, which is currently not functioning as well as I had hoped, but there's a fear and please correct me if I'm getting this wrong, because I need to sort of do some deeper thinking on this. But there's a fear that if we were to prioritize Doyon, that might hurt our chances with the MSBA. Is that an accurate way of phrasing it? Or is it we couldn't articulate that to the MSBA, and that would in turn hurt our chances? Is that one way of looking at it?
Yes, I think,
Okay.
yeah, that's,
I have that concern.
And then the flip concern would be
And I
to,
don't have that concern.
okay, but so the flip concern would be to prioritize Winthrop potentially takes options off the table, if that's what I'm hearing from the two of you, for what might come after if we ever get, if and hopefully when we get in. Is that? Okay. So those are the two things, the two sides of this that we have to kind of.
Ask a clarifying question. Takes options off the table from a technical perspective or from a support in the town perspective?
I think it's a support in the town.
We do have sort of a financial problem and a political problem, and at times those don't always line up. And I think that's what I'm hearing, at least from both sides, is that we're trying to kind of do the right thing and the best thing, but we have a financial problem and a political problem, based on our prior experience of not having had it barely fail at the polls. Is that accurate?
My biggest concern is if we don't get over the first hurdle, that's it. Like, if we don't get in, we don't
Get in
to
the door.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if we don't get invited, we don't get to that eligibility phase. We don't get to that feasibility. We don't get to that point. We get status quo, which is essentially where we are right now, which is essentially where we were in 2014, but worse, actually, with a roof overlay.
With the investment that we put in.
So that's my fear, is that we don't get invited in. So that's, I think you nailed the dilemma. Do we focus on presenting the school that our professional administrator and our school facilities director has deemed, and at least a couple members of our school facilities working group have deemed this the neediest school, or do we face a decision on gaining support from the town and potentially keeping more options open, which I think is debatable, honestly. And it's not an easy decision.
I know that we've used Amherst as a model before. Do we know from the research, how did they, when they were reapplying? Like, we know ultimately they chose a different location, they reduced enrollment, their vote passed like 90%. And I think that's sort of the goal, is how do you get 90% support? How did they reapproach reapplying?
I don't know about the SOI. Well, I do a little bit. They decided on a lower, they were going to consolidate 3 schools. Basically, they kind of went into it saying, turns out one of our schools doesn't need to be addressed right away. We're going to consolidate 2. So I don't know more details than that. Swampscott started with 3 the first time. They are now building, after so many years of a first failed project, they're building a consolidated school for 3 schools.
So Amherst made a lot of changes in their government, and they changed the number of students in the school because they had a similar problem to us in that people wanted 2 individual small schools and I believe their original number was close to ours, which was 800. And the superintendent said, okay, well, we have this 3rd school and I think we'll put K through 1 over here. And they divided it up so that their ultimate combined school has 500 and something. And the other thing they did was they had town meeting like we did. Once it failed, they went to representative town meeting. And then when that failed, they went to town council. So they blew up their government, changed it, and failed twice before they got their combined school. But they got it because the community came together and said, okay, we don't want this large school. We want something more this size. And that's how they made it work.
Yeah.
To my point last time, small children, small schools.
And I'm just going to say it. Ipswich is an extremely political town. People want what they want. And while we can come to consensus at a town meeting, I mean, we're seeing it with the public safety building. We've been trying to get a public safety building built in this town for 100 years. And how many times has it failed? Now we have the property, we have designs, we had it passed at town meeting, and now there's lawsuits to prevent it from being built.
Mhm.
And that's been since 2020, in the middle of COVID, when we took the vote out on the field. So I think there's always going to be a group in town, because of the political nature of the town, that is not going to support whatever is put forward.
You can't please everybody, of course.
Yeah, I think
It's
consensus-
unfortunate, but
consensus
that's,
is
but
not a-
that's the,
even a word
that's
we
the
should be
reality.
using, because it's not possible,
Mhm.
really.
Jen, I had a question, or have a question for you. You had mentioned that some of the priority schools weren't chosen. Forget, this is a couple conversations ago. So does that mean that the school that was not the priority was chosen? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so there's only one example of it. It's New Bedford. They did check the box for consolidation, so meaning there are two schools in question, and the school chosen, New Bedford, was not the priority school. The two schools in question one had 262 students, one had 221 students, but they were 101 years old and 115 years old. But the one that was chosen as the priority was not the one chosen.
It was the other one.
Mhm.
So,
But this is for consolidation.
so I was thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong with what I understood. So if we did choose Doyon, but MSBA thinks that Winthrop is in worse condition, they can do that. I mean, it could be, we could, if we presented it as Doyon, MSBA could still pick Winthrop based on our SOI. Is that possible? I mean, is that what you're saying, John?
We did see it there.
Seems like it.
Of all this,
I
it's
can't imagine
of all the
It
schools
seems
accepted.
possible. It
Right.
seems like that's
Yeah, I don't know what the
possible.
chance of that is.
Yeah, I don't know the background.
I think, should we be accepted? These are all the right conversations. We heavily engage with the town. We've done a ton of that. Some of you all have done that over the course of the last year and a half, just leading up to where we are now. We would continue to do way more of that, understand the options, build consensus. It's not going to be 100%, but that's absolutely how we proceed. With respect to the priority, it's really specific to the current state of the building. And what we're seeing from all of the conditions, including from the facilities director, Winthrop is objectively in a worse position. And I think it makes sense for us to choose that as the priority solely based on that. Should and if when we get accepted, that's when we move forward about what is the best option for the town, for the students, what's economically feasible, and how can we truly proceed. That's, I think, the time for us to have that conversation. This does not take options off the table. It does not set us down any path.
So from a procedural standpoint, we're going to push this to the next meeting and figure out whether or not a vote is legal, required.
Yes, I will look into that. Yeah, and the plan wasn't to make any decisions tonight. It was to
Just talk.
bring us the draft SOIs, talk about all this, and then reiterate the timeline and the timeline
Yeah.
for giving feedback, and we're
And-
getting feedback from administrators, and then to revisit it in 2 weeks.
And I want to reiterate, they're draft SOIs that will change over the next week. I mean, there are pieces in there that we've asked specifically for information from the administration on. So what you have is not by any stretch a complete document.
But not likely the subjective conditions.
There's not a factual information in there, but
Yeah.
We'll just get, yeah.
Correct.
And the priority
There's still a
boxes
working
we're checking
document.
off for
Yeah.
2, 5, and 7.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to your point. Yes, the intention tonight, context, questions, considerations, so that everyone's prepared as they start to review over the course of the next week.
Great conversations.
Yeah.
So I do
it's-
think for the next time, the vote of prior, so it kind of comes down to who decides about the prioritization. And so I think that there maybe should be a school committee vote so that it's clear that the school committee and not the subcommittee or the superintendent or somebody else has weighed in on that. And I think it makes sense to have it separate than the procedural vote, just so it doesn't make somebody be in a position of having to vote against the submission of the SOI because they don't agree with that. Because ultimately, I think everybody wants the MSBA vote to be unanimous. I don't know that it looks good if it's a split committee. So my thought would maybe just have that at the beginning and then have a separate one afterwards that.
Yeah, the vote for the procedural submission, authorization of the submission of SOIs is set language, so we can't modify that anyways, so.
So that's unprecedented, though, to vote on one specific piece of the SOI. Like, we're not going to go through and vote on each paragraph. So I don't know why we would vote on that one box. That's not a requirement of the vote.
Well, we can look into it, though.
I mean, maybe it doesn't need to be a vote, but if it were a straw poll or if it were an opinion of a majority, then, again, it comes down to does that trump the person who wrote the SOI or the person that submits the SOI? So maybe it's not a formal vote.
Okay, so we will revisit this next meeting. And thank you for your work on it. I know it's been a lot. Good night, Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy.
Oh, come on, Jimmy. You don't want to hang out for the rest of the fun?
Stayed late.
Good night, Jimmy.
All right, so we will move on. Wow, that set us back a bit. So we have a Finance Committee budget presentation recap. We had the administrators and Dr. Blake and Mr. Markham did a great job the last 2 nights presenting the budgets to the Finance Committee. And we put this agenda item on because we weren't sure if there would be feedback from them or suggestions for changes to the budget or if there's anything we wanted to talk about. We do have another presentation, still tentative, but well, it's not tentative. It's happening next week on the 12th at 7:30. So I don't know if anyone had feedback or thoughts about the last 2 nights. I know we weren't all there because of other activities, but I will just reiterate that I think the administrators did a really great job. I had not a bunch, but I had a list of things I was going to mention if they didn't come up, and I was like, nope, they covered that one, they covered that one, so they did a really great job. And similarly, I feel like
Thank you.
knew the budget very well, and they were able to answer questions.
I was
And I
gonna
think all they
say,
really asked
they-
for was some additional information that we'll get to them. But they didn't seem to have any, and they were a small group too, for various reasons. But any other comments on how the last couple nights went?
I thought, especially, I was only there the first night when the elementary school administrators, principals presented, but I really admire that when they were asked the question about MCAS, they brought it right back to the budget. Those are long nights. That's a lot of hard work. They did a really good job of keeping their budgets lean so that we could keep the override and sustain it for the next 5 years. And I like the fact that they brought it right back to the budget, and this was not going to be a discussion about MCAS. And yeah, and also, Kate, I thought you did a great job of just making sure that the FinCom stayed within their purview of asking the questions and reminding them that all of this, the budget is online, it's on our district website, and all of this could be looked at prior to when they received a copy of it. Thank you.
I wasn't fishing for compliments. I was just wanted to see how it went. So, yes. Anyone else? Okay. So for those that can make it, it is next. I'm still finalizing the agenda. Again, I have a chair's call Monday, which would be too late to change the agenda. So I'm going to try to touch base with the chair of the finance committee, who is not there either night, to
Right.
nail down that agenda.
Yeah, I think the agenda is going to be the override calculator review. We asked them, they insisted on talking more about special education, although that was on the first night and there were no questions about it.
It's unfortunate. 'cause
Very,
Dr.
very
Hedges
few,
was
and Dr.
there.
Hedges was there. I'm not sure of her availability next Tuesday night. And then there was back and forth discussion last night as well about whether or not and to what degree we should talk about the vocational schools. It really has nothing to do with the budget that we presented, has absolutely nothing to do with the budget that we presented. But they seem to want to dig into that, so that may be on the agenda.
And I will recommend it's not, but it's their meeting, so.
Right.
And it's not that I don't want to talk about it, because I do think clearly we need to work together with the three boards.
Three
and
boards,
the
right.
new
I don't think it's a
representative, Whoever that is.
Right.
To.
Correct.
Come up with a communication plan and with whom and how often. I just don't think our budget presentation is the place to do that.
Correct. It's an issue for the tri-board. It's not a discussion just between the school committee and the finance committee, since the Whittier
Town
program.
manager needs to be
Right.
there,
The
yeah.
Whittier program has,
Right, nothing to do with the budget, which is
Right.
what the-
So then that's something I can ask at the chair's call too, is what, and then they might suggest bean counting because everybody's there. Which would be fine, because then we would have a new, that's April 6th, we would have we would know who our Whittier Tech representative is at that point, and all three boards will be there. And there will be donuts,
Better be donuts.
maybe muffins.
I do think next year for this process with our budget, I like what you said, like, why don't members of the FinCom just come and watch the administrators present? Because those administrators spend, why do they need another late night to present to people that,
Yeah.
they could,
oh,
I think because of what they, yeah.
I
have
agree.
an answer, but
I
I'm not
agree.
sure.
Similarly, every year we do the MCAS presentation to the school committee. And that's what was provided to them last week, so that we didn't have to spend a lot of time reviewing it. But the presentation was given to the school committee in October, November.
yeah.
So I think there are ways to streamline that quite a bit.
And I think in some ways they, when we hear from the administrators, it's not our budget yet. It's your budget.
True.
So, and when we present to the finance committee, it's their meeting and it's our
Your
budget.
budget.
So I
Right.
think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to ask all their questions at their own meeting, not ask questions at our meeting. So I
Oh,
think that's a part of it too.
understood.
I mean, I'm not opposed to trying to streamline things. And the other chairs, I think, are open to
Yeah. So,
discussing ways to do it more efficiently next year.
yeah, I think we can invite them, or they can choose to listen when it's still the superintendent's budget to the presentations. And then when we adopt it as our own, maybe the budget subcommittee can go to a FinCom meeting
And presents what's different or
and present
the-
what's different, but maybe without the principals. Like maybe their chance to hear the presentation is when it's given to us. And then the budget subcommittee can report on changes that were adopted, if so, to the FinCom.
Mhm.
I can certainly suggest it. They do love hearing from the administrators.
They-
And I don't
it-
blame
it-
them.
well,
I do
it-
too.
It's, yes, the,
But they're all
so
good ideas. Yeah.
this is year 7, I believe, 6 or 7, presenting to the FinCom. The first 2 years, I delivered the budget the same way that I did and I did the entire presentation of the budget. First year, they loved it. Second year, I gave the exact same presentation, updated. They absolutely hated it. And that's when we started. And they were very blunt about it. They hated it. And so they insisted on having the administrators present it. So that's the way we've been doing it since then.
And historically, the prior superintendents, it was the administrators. Actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
I don't know that.
I don't know if it was. Here was, because I used to
Yeah.
come watch these.
Yeah.
Sure. So
So
either
I think
way,
I think it varies,
Yeah.
you know, and can change. So
but I think the effort we put in early on to rearrange the schedule helped. The budget calendar helped, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, there's no way to make it perfect. I think it helped our end. It gave us, more, gave us more time with the budget.
Yep.
So I think that worked well. Right. Superintendent's administrative report, it's only
So
been a week.
it's only been a week, so
You pretty much know
it's
everything you've been doing.
yeah. I think it's pretty clear. It's been everything budget between my administrative team meeting. This week we focused on getting ready for the budget presentations, reviewing slides, updating some of the information contained in there, and just reviewing in preparation for the meetings. We had this facilities working group as well, the 2 nights of FinCom meetings. I had the North Shore Education Consortium Board of Directors meeting yesterday morning, approved their preliminary budget for their executive director reports, enrollment reports. Had a meeting yesterday afternoon with elementary folks around the Title I and 2A grants and the remaining ESSER funds and what's been depleted and just in terms of federal reporting. Also had the DEI team met yesterday afternoon in preparation for our presentation to the school committee, which is already scheduled for March 21st.
That part again?
We have the DEI team is coming to present to the school committee that on the 21st, just the work that we've been doing and the different activities. So I say that because the 21st is going to be a busy night, because we also have the SOI discussion as we talked about before, and the SOA, which is the Student Opportunity Act revisions that have to be presented and voted on by the school committee. So Tracy's preparing that document, and we'll have that for the 21st as well. So that'll be a busy night. And then today I was in Marlboro for a good chunk of the day at the Superintendent's Association Executive Board meeting. And here I am.
Thank you. I guess I'll just keep going. Subcommittee working group and liaison reports. Again, we met a week ago, so I'm sure you facility subcommittee maybe met, but I don't know if anyone else has met in the last week. No.
No,
Okay.
that was enough.
Huh?
Has been much time for.
Hasn't been much time.
Seen each other a lot.
Okay, new business. I do see a finance budget, year-to-date budget report from you in there. So I just that wasn't an agenda item. Sorry if it should have been, but I see it. I'm looking at it. Any updates to, I just scrolled right to the bottom, the final line, the grand total. Any details on that and how we're doing?
No, that is the monthly report with terms of the budget. We are performing as planned. We have began an exercise a month ago with the building principals and the administrative assistants to begin to plan for the end of year. It is fastly approaching, so we've begun to encumber funds that we know are going to be needed for the end of the year for supplies and services and graduation needs and a variety of things. It's my goal to have the budget, end of year balances are projected a lot sooner. So when we're going into town meeting, we're not having some of the last minute sort of conversations that we had last year. Not that it was bad. It's just a little too rushed for my taste, to be honest. So we're performing as planned with regard to the budget for fiscal 24.
Tom, can I ask a quick question? You
Yeah, of
mentioned the
course.
encumbrances, is that represented in your year-to-date budget?
So
You earmark those?
some of them are, and some of them are not. The largest piece that's not represented yet in that end of year, in that budget that you see tonight, which is why you're still seeing about a $12 million balance, which is healthy and appropriate. What is not encumbered there are the last 4 months for professional salaries. So that's why that number is so high. I wanted to work on what I would call sort of non-salary items to get those understood, and we're asking for folks to be turning in what would be second semester, everything from stipends to the types of things that we would pay out at the end of the year. So we have a much tighter view of that. I also, of course, have in the back of my planning exercise, the $900,000 contribution. That's part of the 12 million that's not yet encumbered either. I have a running document off to the side as an Excel spreadsheet that sort of has this mapped out, but I don't want to make the changes in the system and then have something needing to flex. We're still only in March, at the beginning of March, so we're in very good shape there.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. The timing was sort of my question, so that's great. Thank you, Tom.
Absolutely. You have another document, which is the monthly report on revolving fund gift and stabilization balances. We remained healthy and on target for all of our FY24 spending and available funds. Two funds to call your attention to, which are ones that we which we talk about more often than others, which is appropriate. School choice, you'll see over the last couple of months a noticeable uptick. That has to do with we're receiving the withdrawals as we get the deposits, if you will, from the state fund. So that's where those we that's why right now the school choice fund at the end of this is, of course, the end of February, is a 1.8 million, 1,828,401, whereas a month ago it was just shy of 1.7 million, 1.799 million. So we are continuing to see those revenues come in as we're requesting them from the state. So that balance continues to be healthy. The next thing to I guess call your attention to on the school are the stabilization fund, which is the second to the bottom, coded as T29. Underneath that is special education stabilization fund at T31. There was a slight uptick in the school stabilization fund. That is one of the funds, of course, managed by the town on our behalf, but the town treasurer had applied some interest payments there. So that's why that's a little over $4 million now, whereas a month ago, it was like 3.9, or the end of the calendar year was 3.9. So in some cases, there were interest payments that are applied in some funds that there aren't. So, but the revolving funds remain in good stead. There's nothing necessarily to call out to. But certainly, if anyone has any questions or concerns about a particular line, please don't hesitate to ever ask.
There's just one suggestion that stabilization dollar amount is represented in the override calculator.
So that one is a not. The $3.9 million would be represented in, because of course, when the calculator was, we presented that now a month plus ago, right? So
My suggestion is that for
next Tuesday night.
our updated, that essentially
That was my plan.
almost pennies closes that 5-year gap for us.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, no, that was my plan, was to update the calculator with the information directly from the town treasurer. Yeah, I would always,
Bring in hard copies to the finance committee. Okay. And this is a document they had asked for, I believe,
Yes.
the revolving funds with the year-end
Yep.
balances. So, great.
that was, I made, in their question last night, I made reference to it being a monthly report.
Yeah.
And we'd pass it along. I certainly wanted to share it, make it a public document with you folks first.
Yes, thank you. I have just a little, so I think I said this at this committee. I got notification from Jamie Fay that there was a Department of Revenue change in the voting requirement for removing money from stabilization funds.
There
It
is,
used to be
yes.
a 2/3 vote required, and now it's a simple
Correct.
majority.
Yes, yeah.
So I did forward that information to the town moderator and the town manager, just because I don't want it to be an issue at town
Mhm.
meeting that people don't know. And then where did this information come from? I didn't hear back from either of them. So I'm just keeping that in the back of my mind that
Yeah, I
I
don't
wanna
think
make
that's an
sure-
issue. I mean, that became, that was a change last fall.
Yeah.
And when Dr. Blake and I met with the town manager, that was one of the talking points that we
Well,
had. So
okay.
I think everyone's,
Okay. I mean, I
on the page
hope
with
it'll be
that.
in the finance committee book so that it's explained,
Mhm.
this is a change that happened at the state level and we're not throwing it on people at town meeting. This is
Right.
something that was. Great. All right. Sorry, finding my agenda. Vouchers and bills are all set. I do not see a consent agenda in the folder. So I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Diana, second by Jeff. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned. 10 o'clock. Not great, but we did it. Thank you. Good night, Ipswich.